Paul Salter. What's happening, brother?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm great, brother. You're in from sunny Florida area into extremely hot Ohio, but I'm excited to have this conversation. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to over the last little bit of time?
Yeah, man, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, too.
Happy to do it, brother.
Your crew's great, too.
Yeah.
Speaks volumes about you without even having to get to know you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So me, my friend, well, when I'm not working on my golf game, I'm doing a lot of mindset coaching and hypnotherapy for entrepreneurs as well as poker players and golfers.
How did you decide on poker players and golfers? I can kind of understand where those two fit in, but why those two? Why not other sports? Why not soccer, football, basketball, baseball?
Yeah, great questions. I've been playing poker since I was 10 years old.
Okay.
I played professionally for a couple of years.
Oh.
That was my first introduction to a mindset coach. I started recognizing the bigger the buy-ins, the bigger the stakes. I had some money issues. I had some scarcity issues. I had some imposter syndrome. And regardless of how much you know about poker, that's a recipe to lose a lot of money fast. So
Interesting.
I needed help. I hired a mindset coach. That was my first introduction to hypnosis, and it was so profound on not only my poker career, but personal life, professional life. It was a natural evolution to walk away from all my nutrition coaching and double down on that.
Whoa. So were you playing online mostly or in person? Or
In
mixture?
person. I was a cash game player.
Now, what's the legality around that? Where were you playing?
So I was living in Flagstaff, Arizona at the
Am I
time.
outing you right now?
No, all legal. So I drive down to Talking Stick in Scottsdale. I was
Okay.
about 3.5 hours from Vegas.
Is that like an Indian reservation?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Talking
smart
Stick
man.
sounded
Yeah.
like- I mean, I don't know much, but
And then Vegas. Vegas was a 3.5 hour drive. I had friends there. I could crash for free, and I lived at the Aria.
whoa. So how does that work if you're playing poker? You're not playing the casino any longer. The casino's taking a percentage of winnings from people that are playing against each other. Is that how
Bingo.
that
So
would
they
work?
take a rake. So every hand, depending at your stakes, I started at 1-3 for those of you who listening kind of know what that means, and worked my way up. The bigger the stake, they start capping the amount they take, but they might take anywhere from $2 to $10 every single hand.
Dang.
And then when you get up to even higher stakes, they'll take X amount per 30 minutes. Like every player will pay $12 every 30 minutes.
I would imagine Vegas is kind of like is that kind of like the mecca for good poker players?
At least in the States, absolutely. But it's growing, man. Like Florida's got a great poker scene. Arizona's got a great scene.
Interesting. Yeah, because we have casinos here in Columbus, but we have one casino. But I don't really know anything about the ability to go in and play poker there. I guess you probably could.
There's a good one up in Cleveland. What is it, like Jack's or something?
Yeah, that's the one the Cavs owner, I think.
Okay, because I lived up in Akron for about 6 months and spent a couple nights there.
I looked into blackjack. I actually got like kind of serious I told you I got too many hobbies. I got kind of serious about trying to learn to count cards in blackjack for a short period of time. The way that I understand it, and you probably know more about it than I do in my very short window into it, it's a skill you can learn. You obviously have to practice it, but you can take an advantage. But the thing that maybe isn't as exciting is your advantage is so small that you kind of just have to play for a really long period of time. Like, I got to play for like 10 hours. And then the blackjack players are indicating like, if you're playing in big enough games, you can make money. But if you're just like grinding, you might be making like $20 an hour. So it's not that fun on that level. And they actually report that it's not entertaining for them because it is just sort of like there's a system, and once you know the system, you're just kind of like a cog in the wheel, essentially.
It's robotic.
Yeah. I never pushed forward with it. I have too many hobbies, but I read this fantastic book called The Man Who Beat the Market, and it's by Ed Thorpe, but he's also the person who wrote the book called The Man Who Beat Blackjack. Okay. And the book is about his life, and he was a mathematician, and it was believed that you could not beat blackjack, but he was the first person who said, well, you can't beat blackjack when the cards are all neutral. Like, you assume that any card could be following, but that's not how a deck of cards works. Correct. Like, once the queen comes out, another queen has a lower percentage of coming back out. So he ended up testing it and like winning a bunch of money, and he's just like a squirrely little mathematician, but he's a really interesting character. It's probably one you would like. Sorry to diverge here, but
No, I'm all cards, all math, all day.
yeah. So what was the poker world like for you?
Oh, incredible. I mean, the biggest mistake so many people think about poker or make with poker is they think it's gambling, which, yes, there's an element of variance and risk and unknown. And when you get it in as a 98% favorite, that 2% is still going to hit.
Yeah.
But you got to treat it like a business. So, I mean,
Yeah.
for me, separate bank accounts, separate Excel spreadsheet is how I did all my financial management. I mean, you have to have the utmost discipline. And the reason I love poker, I think it's a reflection of life. If you want to optimize your potential as a human being, what does it take? Emotional regulation, emotional management, self-awareness, human interaction, understanding psychology, sociology, human behavior, how people behave under stress and pressure. All of those are essential skills for poker. So that's what really drew me into it. And it's really just a mirror of my own personal growth journey. As I continue to learn more about myself and fine tune, my emotional intelligence, I see returns on the poker table.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, because it seems like a lot of the things that you're coaching about, it seems like stock traders would have a benefit of that. Because really, poker and stock trading are super similar to each other in many ways. You have to make an educated decision based on the limited amount of information that you have. You can kind of look at the probabilities and statistics, but you never quite will know what's going to happen. And then, as you just stated, the best people who do like day trading, swing trading, things like that, they treat it like it's an actual business. It's not like the emotional highs and lows. That's the wrong way to trade, essentially. Your emotions are supposed to be as out of this conversation as is possible.
Bingo. Like a couple of my mentors and colleagues, they work primarily with traders. I know nothing about it. I think it's fascinating, but you hit the nail on the head. It's a game of emotional regulation, because when you should have sold or should have bought and then you're knocking yourself in the foot about it, you're regretful, you're guilty, you're angry, that's going to influence your next decision. And that's a downstream effect that you don't want to go on.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, but I have started actively trading my own account. I have, not a big account, but it's super fun. I think you'd probably like it. I could teach you enough to be dangerous, and then you could probably run with it. But you're probably like me. You have too many hobbies. You don't need another monetary one to add on top of it. Well, what about golf? Golf, it's because also additionally, that's been a part of your life for a long time.
It's been a part of my life, but then it went absent for 15 years. I didn't touch a club for 15 years. So what was cool was high school. I don't know why my golf club did this. High schoolers could play for free in the summer. So me and my buddies, we took full advantage of that. We were causing all sorts of shenanigans out there, making the most of it.
That was like your summer camp, essentially.
Absolutely. Betting $10 a hole, living the high life. And then life hit, college, one thing led to another. Didn't play for 15 years. And by happenstance, one of my clients was a scratch golfer. And I was just like, wow, I forgot how much I love this game. And he started having a lot of success, and he started just kind of nudging me to get back into it. So I signed up for lessons. I was like, man, I really enjoy this game. Why did I ever stop? So now I'm on my own little quest to become a scratch golfer and learning along the way.
Yeah, golf is one of the tricky ones when it comes to mindset. I can totally understand how that would be impactful for people to understand their mindset. I told you before this, and I know we've probably read and listened to some of the similar things. I read The Inner Game of Tennis.
Yeah.
And that was really impactful for me. I played soccer all through my childhood, and then I played in college. And I don't play a ton anymore, but I actually am getting back into it. My alumni game's in like a month, and I'm like, I got to be ready. So I'm like running sprints and stuff now. But I can see how a tennis player would just like mash their racket into the ground. You ever watch a tennis match, and there's like a 50-50 chance one of the players is going to break one of their rackets. They actually have rules set up. Like if you break a racket, that's an automatic warning. Golf guys, like I know they break their clubs, but I think that happens less frequently. But that is one of the most frustrating games out there, because you just feel like I should be able to do this. I actually can do this. I've done it. I've proven that I can do it so many times in the past. I just didn't do it. What in the world happened to me?
I think golf's deadly in that regard for two reasons. Number one, when you hit the sweet spot, it is so intoxicating. And someone said it best on the internet. I don't know who to give credit to, but they were like, anybody can hit a golf ball perfectly one time, like a professional golfer. But like when you compare it to a baseball player, the average Joe can't throw a 95 mile per hour fastball. So it's intoxicating, yet across like a 4.5 hour round, you're only swinging for like 5 to 8 minutes. So it's just you, yourself, and your thoughts. And yeah, good company matters, but you're just alone, and it's so easy to go to a dark place on a bad day.
That's interesting, because the Inner Game of Tennis, he talks about like turn your mind off essentially and just let your body react. The ball comes at you, just react. Yeah. And there's no reacting in golf.
Yeah.
There is no like just snap putt and just go up and hit it. Interesting. I never really thought about that. That game is exclusively thinking.
It's so passive, and then all of a sudden, it's this powerful force you need for all of 5 seconds, if that.
You're right. When you do hit a good golf shot, it's everything. You hear the sound, you feel it, you get the visual stimuli. Maybe your buddy's like, oh, it's the whole thing.
Every sense is engaged. It's awesome.
Yeah, interesting. So you got back into golf,
Hmm.
and then you started to understand, hey, maybe some of the things that I'm learning about mindset from poker might be translatable to this sport as well.
Bingo. Again, similar to what we just shared, like golf is such a beautiful reflection of you need emotional intelligence and regulation skills. You need to turn down that emotional volume when you slice your tee shot and still have to go hit your next shot. So it's that presence, that next shot mentality, just like in entrepreneurship. You got to pivot. Life knocks you down. What are you going to do? How are you going to? The big thing I teach on is we're all programmed to unconsciously react. How can we shift that to consciously respond? And when we can do that on a golf course, in the boardrooms, or even on the poker table, like we gain a massive edge against our competition.
I say that all the time to people in our company, especially people who can't really control their emotions. Not even that they're bad people, but you'll give them a piece of feedback, and before you know it, they're like firing back at you. Whoa, hold on. So I like to tell them, okay, are you responding or are you reacting? And generally, to your point, yes, when you're reacting, you're not going to give it your best thought, your best effort, or you're going to put yourself in a position where you set yourself back. Like I say something really mean to you now, and it's like, geez, now our relationship is like going to take 4 weeks of work to kind of pair back together. We do 6-month review increments, and sometimes there'll be something someone did 3 months ago that's like you kind of have to talk about it on the review. It's like you said that thing that was like just super inappropriate. You know that was not something you should do. Yeah, I get it. So let's go back. Talk to me about what's happening in your poker life. Let's go back one step further. How in the world did you decide to become like a legitimate, like a job as a poker player? How does that occur even?
Yeah. So funny enough, I'm the oldest of four. My younger brother taught me how to play. He was 7, I was 10. I still never get over that, but I like to give him credit where credit's due. He's
Yeah.
in Ohio too, which is awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. So I had a great coaching business. I worked as you know, entrepreneurship's a beautiful thing. That time freedom, how we spend it, when we spend it is a beautiful thing. So coaching and business was great. I was playing poker casually on the side, and I just kind of had a craving. Like, I know I can take this to the next level, but I know it's going to require a necessary level of study and output. And I'm not going to half-ass it. I'm either going to be all in or just going to just maintain a recreational state of a game. And I just had kind of the stars aligned. The casino was close. My ex-wife at the time was very supportive of, having that time to go out and play and study. And I just maximized the opportunity.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm with you. I get that same impression. Like if I'm going to do this, like we're going to do it. We're not going to half-ass it.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see how that game would be addicting, the highs and lows. And at some point, I imagine, maybe more so when you're starting, it is an adrenaline rush.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like money's on the line.
Dude, one of my biggest challenges was maintaining over-excitement getting to the casino. Like, I'd be like getting the chips out, my hands are shaking just because I'm excited to be there.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you'll watch a sports game that you don't care about, and then one of your buddies is like, I got $10 on the Celtics. You're like, all right, let's go Celtics. How much would you win? I'd win $7. So you're like, all right, hell yeah. Yeah, let's go. Come on, yeah. And you're like, why do I even, it's not even my money. I didn't even bet on it. Like this other guy bet on it, and he's just like so amped up about a team you don't even care about. Like when sports betting just got legalized in Ohio, there was a bunch of college kids that were working with us, and I'd have to like tell them like, guys, we can't keep talking about sports betting. It'd be like 6 hours a day. They're talking about sports betting. There would be like one female tennis match going on at the like last couple hours of the French Open, like the number 14th ranked player versus like the 30th ranked player, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm picking number 30. I think she's gonna get the upset. I'm like, you guys are maniacs, okay? Like you guys, you need to cool off with this thing. But yeah, the gambling thing, when money's on the line, people just get so excited, and I don't know what that is. That's an interesting.
I think it's
fundamental
self-worth
thing.
and success are so tied in or wrapped around money. I mean, I know that's, my dad worked completely like 1,000% on commission, and he worked his ass off, gave us a great life, but like success, money, volume, input, output, like that was my upbringing around money. I was incredibly money hungry, yet I was struggled with this scarcity and lack mindset for so long. So if I didn't have that predictability, which, entrepreneurship doesn't always offer depending on your niche and how you set up things, it's very real. It was tied, I can speak candidly, it was tied to my self-worth for a long time. Probably still is in some extent.
I think the gambling thing, people go, when I win, it proves I'm smart. And like, I know something that other people don't know. Yeah, I'm smart. And for better or worse, the money game, if you will, a lot of people do view it as like an intelligence contest because you have like people go, oh, Elon Musk, he's so smart, and it's like, well, I think he probably is, but do you actually think he's really smart? You don't know him. Like you've maybe heard him talk before. He's also like definitely sort of autistic. So if you're in a room with him, he might not know how to like handle that situation. Like that's a certain type of smart, but he's successful, so he's got to be smart. Like Jeff Bezos, he's got to be really smart because he's successful. I mean, it's funny. You look at someone like a football player. We don't always think the same way, but people will talk crap about like someone like, oh, LeBron's an idiot. I was like, yeah, well, he's worth like almost $1 billion, so he's not that dumb. All right. But even I am kind of buying into that thing there.
Yeah.
So you got a supportive wife at that time. You're going to the casino a little bit more. It's sort of a side hobby, but when does it become you eventually moved to Vegas? So how does that?
So I didn't live in Vegas. Never lived there. Right?
You did.
Just commuted often.
Well, that's a far commute from. You were in Florida at the time?
I was in Arizona at
okay.
the time. Yeah, so 3.5 hour drive, not bad. Free place to stay. So that was easy.
But place, they'll give you like a free stay if you're playing.
I had friends there.
I got you.
Super easy. So eventually it was then 2018. I had moved back to Florida, but there was 3 casinos, within 15 minutes. So I was like, look, if I'm going to do this, I need a minimum of 25 hours a week. Okay. This is my tentative plan. I mean, I'm a little OCD. I had it all mapped out, the schedule.
Well, I imagine that's really helpful for that because probably you tell me probably 2/3 of the people are not like that, or maybe 90%.
9/10. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's half of what my coaching deals with, like bankroll management, time management, healthy habits. For another time, but yeah, so I'm all in. I'm 25 hours a week. I know what nights I'm playing. I know my estimated or projected hours, and then I'm just treating it like a business. Like this is how much I'm coming in with. I'd have like a 3 buy-in stop limit because the cards don't always go your way. You have to ride out the variance.
It means you're gonna like refuse to buy in 4 or 5, 10
Yeah,
times.
like I'm never going to an ATM. I'm coming with 3 buy-ins. So if my buy-in's $1,000, I'm coming with no more than 3,000. If it all goes to hell that day, okay, I go home. I show up another day.
Are those numbers pretty realistic? $1,000, or was it
for
high
the stakes?
And low?
It depends on the stakes you're playing. So typically, you have like small blind and a big blind. So you'll hear numbers like 1, 3, 2, 5, and you would buy in for 100 times that biggest number. So if I'm playing 2, 5, for example, I buy in for usually at least 500, and then the casino, depending where you play, has limits. They cap how much you can buy in, and that was different on every single casino. So I would typically buy in from 500 to 1,500, and then a couple times there was a few thousand more.
Who are these people that you're playing against? That's got to be kind of an interesting thing, right?
So I had a cool casino by me in Tampa. It's at a horse race track. Okay. So you get a bunch of old elderly money there who are already gambling hundreds or thousands on the horses, that the casino would overlook the horse race track.
I gotcha.
Awesome environment. So you're getting a bunch of horse money there. So that was a no-brainer. But then you go to like the Hard Rock in downtown Tampa. I mean, to be frank, you get some degenerates, you get some elderly, you get people with a lot of money, and it's a mix of all walks of life. It's pretty cool to see. Like I was just at the World Series of Poker a couple of weeks ago speaking, and I went down to the Paris hotel for a couple days, and it's all walks of life. It's a beautiful game. Everybody thinks, if you're familiar with the name Chris Moneymaker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, everyone thinks they're the next moneymaker. So it's really cool to see people from everywhere joining with this collective goal.
Interesting. So how easy is it to figure out how skilled someone is? What are there, 8, 9 people at the table, or does it depend on?
Yeah, typically 8 or 9, and they have 6-handed special games now, which is great.
What does that mean?
So like they'll cap it at 6 people per table. Like 6 people versus 9 people alters your strategy pretty significantly.
It makes sense because the best hand needs to be better in 9 people.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty early on, you can start to see. I would say in a cash game, an hour or two sitting at the table, you know who the regulars are. We call them fish, fresh income source. Like we know who they are, and we know who we want to really harp on and bully to get the money.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the movie Rounders,
Yeah.
like the what are they? I don't know what they call them. They don't call them fish in that movie, but they're like tourists essentially, and they're like all the regulars. We just like take it easy on each other. And we make sure we take their money. Is that kind of real?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we use the terms fish and whales. Whales are the super wealthy guys that come in, just want to splash money around for fun. They don't mind getting it all in with, some crap hand. And you want to be in as many pots with them as possible.
Interesting. So what about the regulars? Is there like a code of ethics? Like, hey, you don't intentionally beat the people you see often, or not really?
There's a lot of ego there. So there's a lot of like
I
reg
see.
on reg battles.
So
Yeah.
somebody will be like, I'm better than Paul. I know I am. I'm gonna take it.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is fun. And then you get like the meta game. You get the game within the game because, you just keep relentlessly 3-betting, 4-betting me. And I'm like, dude, there's 5 fish over here. Like, what's going on? So we kind of start duking it out when there's a whole nother game going on over there.
Oh, jeez. Did you ever play much online or?
Yeah. In like high school, or not high school, I guess, well, maybe 1 year high school, in college. Then my mom found out. That got cut off pretty quickly.
Interesting. That was the rumor. What's his name? Dan Bilzerian. That was the rumor. Is he's like, I could play, like 10,000 hands a day, so I just got so much better than everybody else because they weren't playing online. And I was like, sounds maybe like bullshit, but I don't know. I really don't know. Does online play translate to in person?
To some extent, yes. There's a lot of differences in bet sizing and bet timing online that just are different. Like, for example, you're playing a lot more volume online. A lot of people will play between 4 and 8 tables at once.
Yeah,
So an opening raise size is typically a little smaller, just because the volume is
spreading
much
your
larger.
money out.
Exactly. So there's some bet sizing differences that can, when they translate to the live game, can be revealed as like tells. Like, if I start seeing some irregularities in your bet sizing, I'm going to pick up a lot of information about how you play, which may be advantageous or maybe a red flag to like keep my distance.
Interesting. That sounds like kind of a wild way to have a job. Was it ever at any point pretty good for you, or was it up and down? Was it at any point consistent?
I was fortunate it was consistent. I had a very positive experience. Like, mindset coaching helped me tremendously. I was able to kind of ramp up the gas, if you will, on moving up in stakes. I had a phenomenal coach too.
A poker coach?
Oh yeah, like I said, it's all in. You got to have everybody on your side there.
You're a professional. You kind of think of yourself like a professional athlete,
1,000%.
or a business, either or. But I think the analogy of a professional athlete is probably a little easier to understand.
I think both. I think you're spot on. That's how I coach. Like, you have to treat it like a business, and you are a professional athlete, because if you're not sleeping, eating, training like it, you're missing out on an edge on the poker table, because the regulars, the best of the best, like, that's a question I ask. What are the best of the best doing right now? And if you're not checking the majority of those boxes, you're missing out on low-hanging fruit.
So when you were in Vegas, was that when you were starting to see like people like, oh shit, like, these people are serious? You can feel the difference in their games.
You can, but there's still, and I loved going back to this word, like a degenerate vibe with the guy who's in the casino for 24 hours who still thinks that's the way. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, you can get in like 6-8 hours and go have a family life and sleep. Now, obviously, your hours and your sleep schedule are probably much different depending where you live. Vegas is beautiful because you could work a 9 to 5 playing poker there, because it's always jam packed. You go to other states, like I couldn't do that in Florida. I got to get there at like 6 o'clock and play till midnight, which I'm not about.
There's just not as many people playing at like 9 a.m.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, the nature of the game, the poker athlete has evolved. Like, they're not the overweight elderly anymore. They take care of themselves. They're sharp, and they're doing a lot of off-table study and deep personal work on their mindset to get every edge they can.
I listened to a podcast with, is her name Liv Borhe?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that was really interesting. She talked about the solvers and how they have these hands like solved now. And some of the older poker players were like hesitant to move and start to utilize these solvers. Other guys were like, look, I got to adapt or die. I got to go back and understand these things. And it just seemed like, whoa, the game kind of took like an enormous leap forward with the solvers. It seems like an advantage if you're a younger guy and you go, hey, I'm just going to follow how this works, and maybe take advantage of some of those older degenerates who just like keep pounding the pavement.
Yeah, it is like a rebirth of the game with the solvers. Now that online is becoming
Can you just
legal,
like explain what they do, sort of? You could probably do it better than I.
Yeah, so the best way I think to describe it, like, think of the game chess. Like, chess is completely solved. You can play perfect chess now because you can go in there and have AI analyze.
Right,
like, if you're moving your knight here, your rook here, here is the best option, here's the most likely response, and you can hash out that whole game. So in poker, you can do the same thing based on bet sizing. You have to, input all these variables. Like, what are the positions? How many people are in a hand? What are the bet sizes? Are you in position, out of position, which is first to act or second to act? And essentially, it'll tell you, like, 84% of the time with this range. So it's never one hand. You're playing your range, meaning, I'm trying to, without getting too deep.
They're
and technical,
factoring like how
but-
much money you have compared to other people.
That too, but when I say range, so for example, if I'm the first person to act, everyone else has to act behind me, my range is going to be much tighter. So if I'm opening and betting first, you can assume I might have, pocket tens and above, jacks, queen, kings, aces, ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack. I have what's called a narrow range of very strong hands.
Okay.
Conversely, if I'm on the button, which means I'm last to act the remainder of the hand, I'm probably going to have a really wide hand because it's such an advantageous
You've
position.
seen everyone else act already.
Bingo.
And then you can kind of just be like, well, I'm a little bit of a wild card now at this point in
and
time.
that's very advantageous, taking advantage of your position. So in a solver, you put all that information in, and it's going to tell you that with this range of hands, you want to be betting, you want to be checking, you want to be raising, and it's going to map out the best course of action. But most of them will give you kind of a 3-tiered approach. Like you should be betting in this spot 80% of the time. You should be checking or you should be raising, and it kind of goes through each of those.
Interesting. I'd imagine if you were just really diligent, like going through game after game with that solver, you could get pretty good at the game. Not super fast, but faster than people who are just in a casino watching their money go up and down.
Yeah, it's a game of reps, and that allows you to slow down and understand the thought process, almost like you're getting in the mind of the solver. It's a very weird way to say it, but it makes sense when you're in there working the solver.
Do you think a lot of people are using those now, or is it not as well adopted yet?
I think so. And to be frank, like I don't play nearly as much. I play recreationally on occasion now, which is sad but necessary.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. I mean, it's called GTO, game theory optimal, is a whole breed of poker education.
Yeah.
The up and comers are really embracing it. And there for a while there was like these tribal poker wars of like just going by feel and judgment versus just purely solver. So it's been fun to watch it unfold.
Yeah, and I think that podcast that I listened to, she was saying that now the best players, they have to play less than optimal because then that throws off the other players into not understanding, because everyone essentially sort of knows what like the perfect play is. So when you don't make the perfect play, like you confuse the other players. So I was like, whoa, that's like really meta.
Yeah, you're right. I think the best way to describe it is I would say you're telling a story. And you want to tell a story like you have a terrible hand when you have a great one, and vice versa, because you want someone to call when you have the great hand. So it's storytelling, which is really cool. And people begin to understand, oh, like he should be betting here, but he's not. So he must be weak. So therefore I'm going to check raise or bet. Or
And then I'm sure their previous patterns come into play. Then you got to start to think about, well, he had this good hand, but he didn't take it. And then he had a bad hand. He pushed it and he bluffed. And it's really, I'm sure chaotic.
I think we should get you out on the table.
I would play. I mean, I know how to play, but it's like I'm a novice. I don't know anything about when to bet and how to bet. But clearly that's not what you're doing right now. So what happened that led you to transitioning into something different?
The pandemic. Casinos closed. And to be frank,
I was going to say, you think you'd be still playing if there was no pandemic?
no, because it wasn't as fulfilling sitting in a garage-like basement of a casino all day, not seeing the sun and not helping people. Like, to be frank, you're there taking other people's money. It's fun and exciting, don't get me wrong, but I am very much a coach and a teacher at heart. And it just wasn't fulfilling. It just, something was missing in my life. And I couldn't ever let it surpass that 25 hours a week anyway with all my other obligations. And I'm kind of thankful I had that little safe stop there in the background, because otherwise it could have been a slippery slope. I love playing the game, but it just didn't do it for me in the end.
And to take it to the next level, you think it would have taken more than 25 hours a week, getting rid of some of the other things, maybe getting some bankroll from some other people?
Yeah, for sure. It needs more time.
But you're still coaching people in that world.
Yeah.
So you're not all the way out or anything.
No, I love it. I live vicariously through them. And I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago. I hopped in a tournament. So I still get my fix every now and then.
There you go. When you're in a tournament, what is the thought process like about that? How many people were in that one?
I think there was 265 entries. It was a small one at the Golden Nugget. Like I was away from the strip, just kind of chilling, enjoying my day off. Tournament poker is much different than cash too. It's a whole different mindset and strategy, because
Interesting.
You lose your chips, you're gone. You can't rebuy. I mean, some tournaments you can rebuy for a certain amount of time, but there's an element of survival there. So, like for example, we talked earlier, like bet sizing is different in tournaments. Like that's a little smaller. You don't need to risk as many of your chips because risk of ruin is much higher there. So, I was never a tournament player, so obviously a lot of the game translates there, but there's definitely a lot of nuances that give give you significant edge when you study just to play tournaments. And that's how poker is very divided. You don't usually play both very seriously. You usually specialize in one or the other, even though you can play either or.
I'm sure like the best players though, they're good enough that they can kind of flip around, but
Absolutely.
there's some specialization. That's interesting. Kind of like, I don't know why I keep thinking about tennis now. I'm not like a tennis expert or anything, but it's like playing on clay versus playing on grass. Same game, but it is subtly different. And the players that are good at one, they're going to be really good at the other, but they may not be the best.
Bingo. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, thanks, man. So pandemic hits, and you're like, hey, like I'm not going to become a professional full-time 40 hours a week
Also,
poker
it's
player.
funny. Pandemic hits, but I'm already scheduled to go stay.
Did the casinos close?
They did, but I'm already booked flight and hotel to go to Vegas for the World Series of Poker that year.
I was going to ask if you ever played in the World Series.
So I never did, and I had.
Bummer.
I was
You still might.
I might. Oh, I will. I will. I'll play the main
All right.
event too. Absolutely.
I'll be watching for you on ESPN,
I
man.
appreciate it. And I was gonna go do like a 3-day poker academy before the series, get all tuned up, and of course none of that happened. But they moved that academy online, so I still did that all COVID summer. I played online there, one of one of the international sites, just to get my fix and get my reps in, and started losing a little bit of just the passion, the fire behind it. I don't like playing online. I get bored and distracted.
Oh, I imagine that can be like a slog.
Yeah, it's just not for me. And I was playing distracted. You know, I got ESPN open in one browser. I got a couple tables here. It's not a recipe for success. So that happened in Florida. I mean, let's be frank. Like the pandemic didn't really hit Florida.
Yeah.
Casinos were open pretty soon. They put a vinyl up between every seat there. You had your mask on, so you could play quickly. And then it just started to fade. Like the passion wasn't there as strongly, and it wasn't the same. And I just kind of let it die, to be frank.
That's tough to do, man, to stay passionate about a certain thing for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at pro athletes who've been doing it for 20, 30 years, and you really got to tip your hat to people like that. I just think about LeBron James or Novak Djokovic or Roger Federer. Those guys have been professional for like 20 plus years, and you're just like, dude, that's a grind. Yeah. You think like being a pro athlete would be so fun. It's like, oh, I don't know, man. You really want to fly from Cleveland to Miami on a Tuesday night and then play a game, and then you're going to stay in Miami that night in a hotel that you don't know about, and the next day you got to fly to LA, stay one night in LA, and then the next day you play a basketball game, then you fly back home, and then you got practice. It's just like brutal.
And sometimes you don't stay that night. You get right back on the plane. It's like, holy cow.
Yeah. And, some of those other tournaments like golf, you're going out and you like might just eat total shit on day one and be like, oh, I'm like 15 strokes off the leaderboard. I'm not going to make the cut. I got to go out and do this tomorrow, and then I'm going to fly home. And in those sports, it's nice because you make money every weekend as long as you're doing okay.
Yeah.
But being a pro athlete would be definitely a grind.
And poker's interesting too, because you can play, like we call it, like your A game. You can play your A game and get hammered. I mean, you can play the best you possibly can, but the cards fall how they fall. And simultaneously, you can be the worst player at the table and walk away, rich as can be. It's a fascinating game.
Yeah, the luck portion of it is always kind of lingering there in the background, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so poker's kind of taking a back seat. Is this when golf picks back up for you?
Not yet, no. So poker takes a back seat. I'm still coaching. I got my nutrition coaching business that's transitioned. I have a community of what inevitably became about 150 women that I'm working very closely with.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it grew pretty great over 3 years. So I'm all in on that. Poker's recreational at this point. It's just coaching. It's coaching, going through some life changes. I went through a divorce. I moved around. I moved to Akron for a little while, had a stint there, moved out and about. And I think I'm just lifing and learning for a couple of years, to be frank.
Okay.
Yeah. So once I'm getting my ducks in a row, everything settles, walk away from the nutrition coaching business because I'm doing a lot of mindset coaching already, but I can't
You walk away, you
close the community.
You shed those clients total.
Finish out their terms, of course, and then done. I just couldn't do two businesses like that anymore. It was just starting to wear on me.
Mindset being one business, and then the nutrition side being another business.
Bingo. So I had a community of, like I said, all those women. I had a coach underneath me who was a godsend. She was incredible, helped me run that. And then I had all my one-on-one mindset clients. I was, getting all my hypnotherapy credentials, and that's where my heart is. Like I've been reading books about, human psychology and the subconscious since I was a teenager. So I don't know how I didn't come across hypnosis sooner, to be frank, but like when I did and I finally got that credential, I was like, this is it. Like, this is where my heart and my soul are at. I'm going all in here. It's time to say goodbye.
You said your first interaction with hypnotherapy was when you were playing poker.
Yeah, 2018.
That was clearly pretty
2019.
impactful. What happened?
And like just how did it impact me?
Well, clearly you had some sort of an experience that was so impactful that eventually you're getting out of poker, getting out of your own consulting business, and totally opening up into a new space, getting a new certification. Like, what occurred that was so important in that period?
Two big things. Number one, on my very first session. So a lot of the magic behind hypnosis, I'm looking at your editor here.
My editor is a non-believer in hypnosis.
One of the big benefits is the ability to diffuse stuck toxic emotions. Like, you think about it, we carry guilt, regret, shame, grief. Like, if we don't ever process those emotion is nothing but energy in motion. If you don't give it a way to express it, it just sits there. And a lot of these emotions are so energetically costly. Like, if you wonder why you're stuck trying to develop a new habit, you don't have the activation energy for it because it's being drained by this shame, this grief. So on that first call, I lost my best friend at 21. I repressed the hell out of it. I went to the funeral and I went right to work. I just didn't talk about it. I didn't do anything about it. And on that first session, a memory of him came up, and like I'm like bawling my eyes out. And like this makes more sense when you know me. Like, I'm emotionally constipated the first 30 years of my life. I don't cry. I don't show emotion. So when that happened, it was just the biggest like relief and release I've ever experienced to date. And the weeks ahead, there was just such a substantial level of ease in my life that I had never experienced before. I don't know how else to describe it. And started translating into just, better communication, more job success in the coaching business, more success on the table. But then where she really transformed my life was my relationship with money. I was as frugal as it came with money. I mean, like I said, I'm type A. I organize everything, which is incredibly advantageous. But with poker, like, you need to bet on yourself and invest in yourself. Like, that's, you bet 500 to win 5,000 as a very arbitrary example. And I would struggle to capitalize on those opportunities. And it wasn't until we unpacked my relationship with money, where it came from, how these beliefs were keeping me safe, that I just like shed that shell of who I was. And it was like a burden had been released. I had conquered level whatever and ascended to the next level. And my ability to invest in myself, my ability to move forward and grow financially just became a lot more effortless. At that period of time when we finally had that breakthrough, I had made the same amount of money 5 years in a row. As you can imagine, despite the coaches, the mentors, the pivots, the new books, the courses, the products, I couldn't break that ceiling.
Yeah.
And when we unpacked like where and why that came to be, I mean, mine was blown, and so was, the income was blown.
So is this person just kind of doing therapy with you, talking through issues? Maybe give me an understanding of what that looks like, because I know it's going to impact what you do.
So that's a great question. I'm going to come at it from a couple angles. Ring me back in if I get off track. Like, I'm a fan of traditional talk therapy. I think there's benefit. But I also think it just ingrains the neural pathways responsible for the negative thought spirals and sabotaging behaviors.
Okay.
So with hypnotherapy, like, talk therapy is all at the conscious level. It's you and I having a conversation. You might give me good feedback. You might help me see a different perspective to my problem, and you might offer me some suggestions on different solutions. Cool. Helpful, comes from a great place, may or may not be effective. Hypnosis, hypnotherapy, we're getting to the subconscious level. We're uncovering the origin of, like, when did we learn this emotion, this sabotaging behavior, this belief that is running in the background trying to keep you stuck or safe, because the subconscious just wants to keep you safe. It's always thinking it's helping you. So where she helped me, our calls are a mix of coaching and hypnosis. We're digging into the problem, what it feels like, the emotions present, the thought process, and then we're stopping. We're going right into hypnosis after that to uncover when we learn to think, feel, or behave this way, so we can work to reframe or diffuse that emotion, or offer that inner child. I'm sure you're familiar with the inner child healing. Offer that younger version of ourselves a new perspective, the love or the resource he or she needed. And that has a massive positive ripple effect all the way up until the present moment when done appropriately.
Yeah, I saw a statistic that you posted. It was something along the lines of 600 sessions. It took 600 sessions in talk therapy for people to make something like a 38% improvement.
Yeah.
Seems like an arbitrary number.
I know.
Then you said that the hypnotherapy, it was like 6 sessions.
Yeah, for a 93% improvement. And that wasn't just a study. That was an entire research review on all of the available literature at that point in time.
Like a meta study of
Bingo.
other studies.
Mhm.
Interesting. Why do you think that impact is so significant? And then why do you think more people don't realize that or talk about that?
Well, they don't talk about it, to your buddy's point, because there's a stigma with hypnosis.
Yeah, like you got the watch in front of your face, you take it back and forth, and then I can make you quack like a duck.
Exactly. That, and like most people think, oh my gosh, it's mind control, it's brainwashing. I'm going to surrender my deepest, darkest
Which would be
secrets.
sweet. If somebody can make me like quack like a duck and I am not like present for it, that's cool. I think that's cool. I don't know if that's possible or plausible, but
And you have to think in those situations, like the stage hypnotist and his team are very meticulous in the volunteers they select. Like
That's what
first
I've
and
always
foremost,
heard.
the hands up first. Like
what I've heard, they have to select the right person who's able to be. I've also heard this statistic that like 1 in 4 people can be hypnotized or something along those lines.
so everybody can be hypnotized.
Okay.
It's a natural state of mind. We've both been hypnotized today. It's really the way I describe hypnosis. It's a deep state of relaxation with the intention to make positive change. If we were to hook up like a functional MRI and look at brain waves here, it's a theta brainwave state. It's the exact state you're in deep meditation, but also when you transition from sleeping to waking, when you're lost in a good book as a reader, when you're caught up in a good movie, TV show, or when you're deeply focused in the flow state at work. Those are all periods of hypnosis. So it is natural. And I share that to reinforce a sense of safety and normalcy when I am educating on it, because people think, oh my gosh, it's this altered state of mind where you're in control and I lose control. And that's not the case.
I had someone else who did hypnotherapy on the podcast, and she said, just think about when you're driving somewhere and you get home and you're like, I don't remember that drive at all. I was thinking about 10 other things, but I didn't even think about my drive at all. You were conscious, but you like weren't there really.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens to me often. I'll get to work and I'll be like, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
It's shocking that I didn't just kill someone on my drive home.
Yeah. Highway hypnosis.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why do you think that's like such a prevalent experience? Because it's so, I don't want to say easy to drive, but you've done it so many times that you can kind of put that in the background.
Yeah, your conscious mind essentially has a task to focus on, and your subconscious is taking that task. It's embedded so deeply because you've done it a million times at that point that you don't need to exert a lot of energy. So you can just chill, you can be, and you can allow your mind to wander. And that's what, didn't you just tell me before we hit record you got an idea while driving?
Yeah. I got the idea for this podcast name changed while I was driving.
Yeah. So,
I remember where I was. I just got to a stoplight and it was just like, that's the name of the podcast. Oh, okay. Yeah. And I heard the same thing, if you remember, Steve, from Alex Pong, who wrote the book Rest.
Great book.
Yeah,
twice.
I had him on. Yeah. He's a good guy. Super smart guy. Like very intelligent, very like intellectual as a speaker.
I imagine.
But he was indicating that so many successful and important scientists and scientific discoveries were done by someone who would work like 3 or 4 hours in the morning. They'll work like, they're 9 to 1, and then they'll take a 2-hour walk and they'll just kind of like put those ideas on in the background so that they are not necessarily concentrating on it. That's kind of those theta waves as you described.
Mm-hmm.
In the background they're going. And he said one of the best ways of kind of indicating how that works is you'll have this conversation with you and your buddies. Who is that actor? What was her name in that movie? Gosh, I don't know why I can't remember. And then you move on and then you're talking about something totally different. And then you just go, Cameron Diaz. And you're like, where did that come from? Like, I wasn't thinking about this movie anymore. And he said that your brain continues to kind of stew on the problem. I don't know if it's your subconscious or kind of those secondary thought patterns behind the front lines. They're still thinking about the problem. And then eventually when they get it, it just snaps into action. It's a weird thing, but it's happened to all of us.
Yeah, and one of the best things you could do is like before you go to sleep, plant a seed, a problem, a challenge for your subconscious to chew on while you're sleeping. Like I don't do this as consistently as I should, but like when I'm working on a project or I can't quite get an article or a podcast organized, I'll set an intention. Like I just want to have some clarity on X, Y, and Z in the morning. And not to my surprise, that next morning I just write effortlessly. I hit that flow state and boom, it's all there for me.
Interesting. Do you think that if you can concentrate on that enough before you fall asleep, then that'll make an impact? I know people talk about that with like dreams. If they're like thinking about something, then boom, it happens in their dream. I don't remember a lot of my dreams.
I
so
don't either. I think dreaming's in a different stratosphere. I don't quite.
Dreaming's so strange.
And it's
Like,
so unique.
Yeah, it's such a strange thing. I don't even
And
want
my
to
girlfriend
begin to
tells me
that.
hers every morning. I'm like, how do you remember all that? And why
I
are you
know.
dreaming that?
Yeah. My dreams are just obscure. Like someone at the office quit. And like I was like, what am I dreaming about that? I had one, this is so stupid. But we were living and working in this business, but we were like underwater. We lived in an underwater world. And then one of my employees quit. And I was like, what in the world does that mean? Okay, so back to your business. You make this huge transition. You transition into mindset. Now, not to say that I don't think mindset is a blue ocean, but it seems a little harder than nutrition coaching. Maybe there's less people in nutrition coaching, right? There's a lot of people in that field.
It's an interesting observation.
But I would think that it's more niched, but harder to convince someone like, I need to train your mindset than you're overweight. You know you're overweight. I can help you lose that weight.
100%. Because, and I find this especially with men too. We're stubborn. We think we can do everything ourselves.
Paul, I got this. Don't worry about me, brother.
Exactly. But you're right. Like when we hear like mindset too, like there's still such a stigma around mental health that yes, it's lessened and weakened over the years, but we still have a long way to go. But I always find it funny when you think about it, like your entire day, 95% of it can be attributed to subconscious behavior.
Right.
So why are you not taking time to invest in connecting with and upgrading what's going on in your subconscious? To me, obviously, I've read a few books and done quite a few things, and like I get it, it makes sense. But to somebody who already feels stressed and overwhelmed and has so much on their plate, they've just they have all these programs running in the background. The last thing they think they can even do is change it, because it's like, I've been this way for so long. How could I possibly be any different? My mom was this way. My dad was this way. My brother's just like this. They feel like they've dug such a deep hole. There's no way out. Why bother?
Yeah, I just want to linger on that. You said that 95% of the actions you engage in throughout the day are in your subconscious. Something I heard from Charles Duhigg. He talked about it in terms of habits. He's like, what you do in the morning, like you don't think about, okay, I wake up and then what happens? You just kind of automatically walk over to the shower and then you turn the shower on, you flick it, and you're not even thinking about that. You just kind of go on to autopilot. Same thing is true with like getting to work and then the actions that you take during work. Sometimes you're just like, okay, I know I got to check my email. I got to check my calendar. Okay, I got a meeting. But you're not consciously like slowing down and going, all right, what's important? What do I need to focus on? You're just allowing a lot of things to kind of happen to you. And that's maybe difficult to reconcile, even when you think you're super productive, super organized, super thoughtful. But yes, to your point, you're not thinking about a lot of the things that happen. I mean, just standing up and walking somewhere, like you don't have to process like, how do I navigate my legs? Like, how do I avoid these corners and cabinets? That's an interesting thing. How much is done for us without us even needing to think about it?
Yeah, and our brain loves to conserve energy. Like habits are such a blessing. It doesn't have to work nearly as hard, yet we have so many habits and patterns that are designed to keep us comfortable. Like I was thinking about this actually on my Uber ride today. Like we're programmed to be comfortable. Like we seek comfort, and comfort is not the same as happy. Like I was just thinking like some of my ultra endurance events, like I am hurting like hell, but I am so freaking happy. It's like discomfort growth is what ultimately leads to happiness, which is fleeting. We have to find a level of contentment and joy and fulfillment, and happiness comes and goes based on where we are in our particular journey of life, but we're hardwired for comfort. And comfort's the enemy. Like, I often use them words like comfort and average in sentences together. But if you think about like the average American, overweight, out of shape, broke, in debt, unhappy, stressed, anxious, depressed, like we don't want to go down that path. Yet we are hardwired to put ourselves in situations, environments that really, catalyze those behaviors and those experiences. So we have to learn to slow down, find the courage or the support to look inward and just say, what's going on under the hood here, and what positive proactive steps can I begin to take to unlearning and upgrading some of those fears, beliefs, and behaviors that make up the blueprint of who I am.
That comfort thing, I think so many people seek comfort. It's like Friday night and you're like, what's going on tonight? I just don't want to do anything, man. I just want to like lay on my couch. Your friends are like, let's go out. Let's go do something. You're like, nah, I don't want to. But you will not in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years remember just sitting on the couch that night. Colin O'Brady talks about it. He says most people want to live life at a 6. They are so scared of experiencing those 1s and 2 days that they will never aspire for a 10-day. Whereas for him, it's like, I climbed Mount Everest today. But the 3 days leading up might be like, this day was terrible. It was negative 20 degrees. I slept in a tent. And then it's like you do that 3 days in a row. And then maybe when you're on the plane home, you're like, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm so glad that we did that. That was unbelievable. But he had some 1s to get to that 10. But if he was just sitting on his couch, that'd be like a 5 or a 6. Like cozy, 72 degrees. I can watch Netflix. I can order Indian food. This is going to be so fun. But it's not the same thing as actually going out and doing something. And in order to do that, like you said, your endurance races, you have to struggle through those things. I like the type 1, type 2, type 3 fun description. Type 1 is like roller coaster. Wow, this is so fun. Type 2 is like maybe those endurance races where it sucked while you were doing it, but afterwards you're like, that was cool. Type 3 is it sucked while you were doing it. I don't want to do it again, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done a couple of those.
Have you done the 12-hour walk?
I did the 12-hour
Good
walk.
man.
Dude, I was just about to say, that's the hardest thing that I've ever physically done.
Okay.
Dude,
Tell me more.
It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I walked here from my house. It's 17 miles here. So I did about 36, 35 total miles in 12 hours.
You were walking fast.
I was walking fast. I was feeling good until about mile 30. And then shit just started to fall apart.
What time of year was it?
It wasn't too hot.
Okay.
It was Memorial Day, actually.
Okay.
It was last Memorial Day. And I was like, should I do it again this Memorial Day? I was like, no, maybe like an Olympics type thing. Like every 4 years I'll do this. But it was brutal, man. And I'm, a pretty fit guy. I'm a good endurance athlete. I ran the mile in high school. I was the mile champ in my conference 2 years in a row. I was like a 4:30 miler. So, I mean, I have endurance, but it was just brutal, man. Like my legs were just beat to hell to the point that when I had to go off concrete to get onto grass, I was nervous. I was like, I might tear an ACL on this grass. Just regular grass, like nothing. But there's like those little bumps in the grass. I'm like, this might, really damage my legs. But I got it done, and that was right between type 2 and type 3 fun.
Okay.
To the point of like, I don't know if I ever want to do this again. And someone was like, what did you take away from it? And I was just like, right after, I was like, I don't know what I took away from that, other than it was just really hard and brutal. So have you also done it?
I did.
You said you're an endurance athlete. You've done some extreme endurance races.
Don't call me an athlete, though. I've done them without any training. I just do them for the mental challenge.
Well, I had a buddy who did that about a marathon. He literally Barney Stinson'd it. He's like, just running. You just start running and you don't stop. He was a military guy. That's how he sounds.
That's funny.
Sounds in my head.
I was telling my friends I want to do an impromptu marathon in a week or two. Just do it.
I mean, I think it would be brutal. Based on my 35-mile walk, I think running 26 miles would be pretty freaking brutal.
Yeah, I've only done it more than that twice, so we'll see.
So what about your 12-hour walk? How was it?
It was great. So I did it in August in Florida.
That's hot.
So I got up at I think I started at 4 a.m.
I started at 5 a.m.
I made the mistake. I did my first 6 miles in flip-flops. And granted, they're nice flip-flops meant for walking, but stupid mistake.
Setting yourself up for success.
Correct.
As John Wooden would say, failing to prepare is
Busted up my ankle on like mile 4.
Okay.
But I thoroughly enjoyed it, man. Like I made it an extra challenge. I did no coffee, and I'm a big coffee drinker, just not after 3 p.m. And then I did no food. And just one of the extra challenge. I loved it. I hit a wall like we all do for probably various reasons. Probably around I did 33 miles. That's why I said you walked fast, and I thought I walked fast.
I actually for the last 45 minutes, I wasn't really walking. Like I was like home, like I'm gonna get back up and I'm gonna go. So I was really like 11 hours and 15 minutes, and I was like, I can't go any farther.
Yeah, I would say like a mile 27 or so. Like that 2 minutes on the couch, I would give myself in between because I did like a 3-mile loop in my neighborhood so I could get the dog a couple times. I sat like an extra 2 minutes there. I was like, dude, get yourself up. You've got 2 more laps left. They were 3-mile laps. Just get it done. But whew.
So I burned the boat. I walked 17 miles out, and I was like, you got to get home one way or another, brother.
What'd you do to hydrate?
Great question. I had water. I had a backpack on the way there, and I was drinking my water. I was staying hydrated and eating. And then I got here, and I had, I think, like a sandwich and banana bread. it just so happened, my business partner, love my business partner to death. He's very different from me. He gets here. It's the day before Memorial Day. It's the Saturday of Memorial Day. So then Monday was the Memorial Day.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets here and he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, I'm doing a thing." He's like, "Where's your car?" And I was like, "So about that, I actually walked here." And he's like, "What? You walked here?" He's like, "From where?" I was like, "From my house in Grandview, which is 17 miles away." And he's like, just trying to process everything. And he's like, "So how are you getting home?" I was like, "I'm going to walk home." And he's like, "All right. Like, you want to share your location with me? Just like make sure you're all right." I was like, "Yeah, sure." But yeah, so I ate like a bunch of banana bread here.
Okay.
And then I dropped my backpack because I was like, I don't want to carry any more weight. The backpack wasn't heavy to begin with, maybe 5 pounds, but I was like, I'm done with that backpack. I grabbed like a big bottle of water. I think maybe 2 bottles of water, one in my pocket, one in my hand. Just was like, all right, let's go. So went back. Yeah.
Rough.
Yeah. The last 3 miles were pretty rough. Like, and it's like Saturday afternoon, like 5 o'clock in my kind of nice little suburb. And there's like just like girls in sports bras like walking past me, and I'm like basically like crippled old man, like every step is like just painful and brutal, and they're like looking at me like they didn't say anything, but I could tell they were like, I want to ask him if he's okay, but I don't really want to know the answer. So yeah, it was. I don't know if it was fun. I wouldn't say I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of hard, stupid physical endeavors and activities, but that one definitely takes the cake for me.
Okay.
It was the most brutal.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had the experience.
I'm glad I did it too, but I didn't do it this Memorial Day. So,
I've had an itch for it too. I can't get anybody to do it with me though. My friends suck.
but you're supposed to kind of do it solo.
I agree. And I would just say, don't talk to me, but I'm trying to like include them. Like, you need to be out of your comfort zone too. And they're like, nah, it's Florida. It's summer.
I think if I told someone about how hard it was, they'd be like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. You tell someone it was the most brutal experience in my life. What did you take away from it? I don't even know. They're gonna be like,
Yeah,
I'm
you're not
doing
selling
that.
it.
Like, well, I at least can listen to music, right? No, you can't listen to any music. You were like, you can't eat either. Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, man. Well, so yeah, you kind of shed this whole business, this successful business. What was that decision like?
You know, it'd been weighing on me for probably a year. I knew it was inevitable, but I didn't know what it looked like yet. And let's be honest, there's been 2 occasions in my life where I have completely cut the cord of a primary revenue stream, and they both scared the shit out of me. And I'm still here to tell the tale. But when I did it in 2020, I did it. Like, I was still coaching, but I was like coach for a company, like a contractor too. So he was giving me like 90% of my clients in revenue. I parted ways with him. That was scary. And then this time around, like, I still had all my mindset clients coming in, but my coaching was still a large portion of my revenue. So I knew it needed to happen, and I was very diligent trying to figure the path out. I needed a bit of a smoother runway this time, so I told myself. But the more I started doing both roles, just the more consuming it was. I was drained. I was not taking time off like I used to, and it was just eating away at me. So I took a 6-day solo trip to Colorado. I mean, I had my phone, but like my phone was off, except in case I got lost in the mountains while I was hiking. And I just connected with myself. Like, what do I need to do here? I kept telling myself I was going to push another year, and I was fighting it. I was showing up for these weekly coaching calls that I dearly used to love, and I just did not want to be there. And I loved the women. My community was awesome, but I just didn't want to do it. I started noticing like my quality of coaching was starting to slack a little bit because my heart wasn't in it. So I got back from that trip, and the next week I said, 3 months, here's the final date, done. And it was a freeing decision that the moment I announced it, it was like I lost 50 pounds. It felt so good, and it was actually much easier after that than I thought it would be. I mean, I was able to, as you can imagine, put more time and energy into the mindset coaching. I mean, the month after that was terrific because I finally had the bandwidth, the fulfillment, the fun, the challenge at an all-time high. And that showed in my business. My clients and my mindset clients were just, getting incredible results. And I've just continued to run with that.
So talk to me about what a mindset client might look like. Um, what is their typical archetype?
I think the best universal sentence I've been, this is such an interesting question. I'm so happy you asked it because I can help anybody who truly wants to be helped. But as you know, there's so much value in niching down, which is why poker players, golfers, and I say entrepreneurs and high performers, but anybody who knows what to do to achieve success but isn't doing it needs a mindset coach. So again, you can apply that to all walks of life. Who I typically work with outside of poker and golf are entrepreneurs who are stuck. I love the word stuck. Like my business is
Wrote that down.
unstuck yourself. So when I say stuck, they know what to do, but they also know that accumulating more knowledge, X's and O's, has not served them. More courses, more business tactical coaching, and despite knowing what to do, they're not doing it. So beginning to untangle the web of fears, of limiting beliefs, limiting stories, sabotaging behaviors is where I come in to help uncover and unlearn these behaviors that are keeping them stuck so that we can help them unlock their potential. So think the entrepreneur who's hit the same income or impact ceiling year after year, the business owner who struggles with delegation and effective communication, takes on all the work themselves. Like I have one client to come to mind. I love him dearly. He would delegate, and then go do the work all over again because it wasn't up to his standard. And it's like, dude, like how is that serving you? You already have 15,000 different businesses. You're just wasting your time and you're wasting their time as well. So anybody, we can be stuck in a variety of ways, but we start to see these patterns of sabotage where it's like, yeah, I know that thing's not helping me grow and I just don't know what to do about it. And maybe I don't care, but I kind of do. And we just start to unpack that.
Are those some of the really common things that you see entrepreneurs not willing to give up some of those tasks? I call it bottlenecking. You're the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. The second big one I see is I call it achievement escapism, where so think of an entrepreneur who has just a tenacious work ethic, likely is type A OCD to some capacity because they had to achieve to escape a bad childhood, whether it was abuse, neglect, or they're the generational chain breaker in their particular family that they don't know how to turn off. So they struggle with burnout, overwhelm, and stress. They don't feel safe slowing down or giving themselves permission to relax. And then the money mindset, which, like I said, shared earlier, I relate a lot to that. So I thoroughly enjoy helping people beginning to let go of those limiting money beliefs, like someone who doesn't feel they deserve, whether it's a 5-figure month, a 7-figure year, and beyond.
Yeah, that second one that you just hit on, I think that's really common. That entrepreneur who just like go, 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 go. And I'm personally of the opinion that that's not really very productive to try to work like 12 hours a day. I actually think it's quite the opposite. If you have to work 12 hours a day, there's a problem in your business.
So I agree with all that. Yet I think a lot of people know that, still struggle to do it. I mean, I can relate. I worked, 80-hour weeks my fair share of years, and I know, like, I've read Rest at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
I know to slow down and play. I got so nerdy. I tracked like the amount of time I spent playing pickleball or out with friends and how it impacted my revenue for a 6-month span. This was after like a spiritual journey.
Was pickleball helpful?
Pickleball was incredibly helpful. I kid you not.
You wouldn't believe what you'd have been able to do if that was tennis.
I played tennis.
All right.
I'm surprised we haven't gotten there yet. So yeah, we know what to do. We know to slow down, rest. We know to block off our calendar for family time, for gym time, for whatever it may be. But we still don't do it. What's the disconnect? What's the resistance? And like I said, like that achievement escapism is so hardwired. That's how they got success validation. You think of, like, I'm the oldest of 4. So it's very obvious that all of my parents' energy started getting split up as they kept popping out more children. I had to find a way to be seen, to feel that connection, acceptance, and belonging. I was a straight A student. I was a great athlete. That's when my parents praised me and gave me that attention.
Interesting. Let's take a quick couple second break, and then we'll circle back here in a minute, man.
Let's do it.
To kind of pick up where we left off, we were talking about some of the things that plague business owners. The inability to relinquish control. Talked a little bit about that imposter syndrome, like that lacking self-belief to move on to the next level. Talk to me about maybe some of the straightforward mental models maybe that you use to help people overcome some of these patterns, I would call them, that continue to plague them and not allow them to relinquish control, not allow them to okay, I'm gonna go for a walk in the middle of the day instead of like grinding, or not allowing them to kind of like get past themselves.
Yeah, so the framework I use is I call it a destructive mindset program.
Okay.
So my mentor calls it a detrimental mental program, but the mental throws me off. I can't do it. So destructive mindset program,
Detrimental
yeah,
mental.
kills me. So let me break that down, and I'll try to say this slowly, make sure it's not clear as mud. There's no shortage of triggers in life, emotional triggers. We traverse an emotional battlefield every day. It's not if we detonate a trigger, it's just a matter of when. And it could be a person, a word, a sentence, an environment, an experience, a tone of voice, a volume of voice. And this is going to trigger an emotion.
Mm.
That permeates into your self-talk, your thoughts, your beliefs, and your behaviors. All of this is happening as an unconscious reaction in a matter of milliseconds. All you and I ever see and tangibly experience is the end self-sabotaging behavior. It's the procrastination, it's the gambling, it's the infidelity, it's the perfectionism. We see that at the conscious surface level, yet all of it's happening under the hood. So the first step we need to do is we start identifying the long list of sabotaging behaviors. Procrastination's a big one. We talked about the ineffective communication and delegation. There's a long list of sabotaging behaviors. And most people too are pretty clear on some of their sabotaging emotions. The imposter syndrome, lack of confidence. But we need to in a stepwise fashion, break it down. Like, what are the triggers? What are the emotions you're feeling? What are the limiting beliefs and the limiting stories keeping you stuck? And once we're able to break that down, we can inject some logic. Like, we're emotional beings. We got to find a way to start turning down that emotional volume. So we start injecting logic. Like, is it really true that it's not safe to make $1 million a year? Is it really true it's not safe to lose 40 pounds? We have to start questioning these stories that our subconscious has created, fully recognizing that A, our subconscious wants to keep us safe. B, our subconscious is outdated as shit. It's irrational. It's primal. It was designed to keep us alive. It's done a wonderful thing, but it hasn't updated as we've updated and evolved as a species. So we're fighting something that wants to keep us safe and focused on surviving when we want to thrive. And we have to break down that pattern and then go uncover when we learn these behaviors, diffuse the emotions around them. And a lot of this stems from some of our critical childhood needs going unmet, and our subconscious learning how to get those needs met in some way, shape, or form. Like I talked to you about, like, eldest children struggle a lot when all of their siblings start getting more and more attention. They typically lean towards either lashing out or perfectionistic type behaviors to glean more attention from mom and dad. And sure, it serves 9-year-old Sally really well, but when 49-year-old Sally is still trying to be a perfectionist and she's a CEO and she's struggling to run a business, it's not helping her anymore.
Do you clearly, people who come to you, they've already recognized there's a problem with their pattern. What do you think about for people that maybe haven't recognized they have these problematic patterns? I'm thinking of a couple of people that I've worked with, done business with, that to everyone else, it's like obvious that this is a problem, but to them, they are like maybe a little bit oblivious to it. Or not to say that they'll like gaslight you, but they'll make you feel like you're making this thing up that I'm doing. Like, it's not really something I'm doing. You're creating this situation. You're blowing it out of proportion.
So I don't typically have too many conversations with those people because there needs to be a level of ownership and a desire to change. And if they're still not at the stage of accepting and acknowledging that there is something wrong, they don't have all of the answers, they're not coachable 9 times out of 10. There's going to be no accountability, and they're going to get lackluster results. So when I'm connecting with people, and even when like I have a lot of word of mouth referrals, and I'll ask the person, like, is this person, like, how committed to change are they? Do they really want to better themselves? Like, there's a little bit of a filtering process even before I might contact some of these people, just to make sure that I'm not going to waste their time and they're not going to waste mine, because not everybody wants to change. Change and growth are unknown, scary, uncertain for a lot of people, and actually really for everybody, until we still take action anyway. So if they're not ready to confront that, you have to let them get there on their own. Otherwise, you're going to be it's going to be like pulling teeth.
Yeah. The thing for me is we have 35 employees here. You saw some of them on the way in, but they were mostly scattering at 450 on a Friday. But sometimes you will run into that. You're like, this is a good person. 90% of this person's activity is great, but there's this 10% that's really kind of dragging everyone down. That's the difficult thing, is having those hard conversations with that person to try to make them aware of that behavior that might be detrimental and not putting them on the defensive. I see this so often from whether it be managers, not at my company, but other companies. I've told the story before, but I was in Chipotle getting a burrito, and like the guy didn't ring the person out as double meat ahead of me or something very minor. And his manager was a gal. She came over and she started like clapping in his face, like, this is how we lose money. And I was just like, whoa. Like, she was young. So like, not to say that that's an excuse, but if I could have pulled her aside, I'd be like, he's not going to like be listening to you when you do that. Like, he's immediately going to go into like fight mode or maybe flight and just totally like shut down and not listen at all. But I see that so often that people will put people on the defensive immediately. So I'm trying to not put you on the defensive. Paul, you're a great employee. Everything's going great. Then the butt has to come out. But there is this behavior that we need to work on. And it's super difficult to do it. So I was just looking to see if you had any ideas on how to work on those corrective behaviors as a collaboration. We all want to work together on this thing. We're working towards this common goal. I know I'm going to be able to pay you more money if you can do this thing or snuff this thing out. It's tough, though.
Yeah, no, I love that thought process, though. I mean, it just shows how much you care about your employees, which is outstanding. And I think there's a very big difference that's often misconstrued between teaching, coaching, and even leadership, because there's elements of coaching and teaching here. And, when you can teach someone how to behave all day, you can teach them, hey, this is what we do at this company. And, you need an element of that. But when your employee knows what to do and is still not doing it, that's when we have to shift and put our coaching hat on.
I got a thought in my mind right now. We have an employee who I really like. She will constantly be on her phone, like watching a TV show. And it's just not something we do when we're working at our stations. We've told her so many times, like, not surprised that she knows this is not acceptable. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. Well, so there's a good book too, and I'm going to butcher the title, but I'll send it to you after, like the 7 most effective coaching questions to ask. Highly recommend it. And it's all about word choice. Your language, your verbiage is so important. So let's run with this example for a moment. So if we're putting our coaching hat on, it could, I'm curious. I notice you're doing X, Y, and Z. I also notice that one of your goals in this company is to accomplish A, B, and C. How do you think this behavior is helping you achieve your goal of making more money, getting a promotion, whatever it may be?
7 most effective table tennis serves comes up there. Can't get away from it, can we?
Racket sports.
Yeah, absolutely.
So word choice is key, and really putting the ball in their court. Like a good coach, the blue and yellow one. There you go.
I really love that. I'm curious.
Yeah, the coaching, like a good coach will tell you what you're doing wrong. A great coach will help you recognize what you're doing wrong, admit it, take ownership, and then empower you to take action to change it. So yeah, that's the book. Can't recommend it enough. Great book.
By Michael Bungay Stanier.
So good. He's got 2 last names.
Yeah, man. He's got all the names. Yeah, and just tough. It's tough to relay that message to someone, especially when they're a good employee and you want them to do well. And today we talked about her 6-month pay bump. She was a little frustrated with it, but I walked out there and she was literally had her phone like propped up watching a movie. And I'm like, I feel like maybe I'm doing something wrong because I'm not able to articulate like this very clear example of like one of the reasons your pay bump is not what it is because of these little microcosms here. But it's tough, man. It's tough hiring employees and having employees because you deal with these things and you don't necessarily always know the right thing to say. You just kind of try your best and you can't always make everybody happy. You just try to put the best foot forward, and it's not going to always please everyone every time.
It's not, but I think as long as you come across with compassion, candor's great. Everybody needs candid feedback. And if it's delivered with compassion, eventually that person gets it. It might suck in the moment, and that's okay. That's a part of their growth. And I've learned this the hard way. It's not a reflection of me if someone takes feedback bad, even though for the longest time I would believe it would be. Like, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. I want them to like me. That's not how you run a business. You can't be everyone's best friend. You know that. I know that. You can be friendly and you can love your employees dearly, but at some point, depending on the nature of the relationship, where they are in your actual hierarchy, there has to be a divide of professionalism to get the most out of them.
Yeah, I try to say this often to the employees. We're the type of company, if you have something stuck in your teeth, we want to tell you. We don't want to have like so much empathy for you that we don't say anything because it's embarrassing for you for me to tell you that. It's like, no, the embarrassing part is you walking around for the next 4 hours at this dinner party with like something stuck in your mouth. People are like, is anyone going to say something? So I just go, we're the type of company who's going to say something to you. Not making it any easier though to actually then say the thing. And you'd wonder how much people think they're picking on me versus like they're trying to like correct this behavior that I know they don't like. There's a balancing act there for sure.
I found too, like, I haven't had 35 employees, but I've had my fair share of coaches and contract workers.
Try not to
under me.
get 35 employees if you don't need to.
Yeah, kind of like the solopreneur
Yeah,
route.
I'm jealous of you in some ways.
Yeah, no, I will say a quote that stood with me ever since I heard it. If you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So I like
Yeah.
having others. But with that said, really taking an interest in their personal life, getting to know them, obviously more challenging the more employees you have. But that really helped me, I think, overcome a hurdle and being able to create a safe space to deliver that candid feedback. I know them as a person. I learn more about their communication style, their preferences, what kind of lands well versus what doesn't land so well, and going that extra mile to, like, I see signs on your building, like the bonding activities, the out of work experiences. So you get to know them in a non-work environment goes such a tremendously long way.
Yeah, I think people do appreciate what we do here, but there's always the zoom out view and then the zoom in view. Like today was bad. Zoom out. I love working here. You zoom in. Today still was bad though. It's like, okay. So talk to me about mindset shifts that people begin to make once they've bought in and they're starting to understand, okay, I might sort of be the bottleneck. I might sort of be like difficult to communicate with. I might sort of be working so hard and so fast that I'm not allowing myself the room to do things right as opposed to do the thing over and over again. What are those shifts that you start to see people make when you can say, all right, that's working for this person?
Yeah. So like we mentioned earlier, the people I work with, they're aware. So the first thing we're going to do is really paint the picture. Like, this is where you are. This is where you want to be. This is what you've been doing the last 6 months. And clearly you're the single reason why you have not accomplished your goal. How does this feel? Like, I'm someone who will really dig into the emotions. I want to know the anxiety, the pain, the grief, the frustration and anger you're experiencing, because that's a catalyst for me. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Please remind me. But once we get really clear on the emotional experience, like, I am trying to make them feel the pain of knowing they are the single reason they can't reach their goals. I am pushing every button. I'm pouring salt in their wounds so they really recognize, like, wow, if I just stop doing this, or if I surrender to asking for help, delegating, whatever it is, like, I've also painted the dream vacation. Like, they know what the end destination is. And when we have such a stark contrast between where they want to be, where they are, and they can clearly see more than ever that they're the reason why they're not at the dream vacation, it's like we knocked a wall down.
Maybe just paint the picture for me. How you go about rubbing salt in the wound, I think is what you just said. Because that seems
candid.
Well, I was going to say maybe something that if someone was paying me money to coach them, I might not try to make them feel like a total asshole.
Yeah, compassionate candor.
All right.
So with that said, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about your situation. So if we're working in entrepreneurship, for example, we're going into all of the financials. I'm going into every aspect of their life. I'm talking right off the bat. I'm talking about money. I'm talking about sex. I'm talking about relationships. I want to really help them understand where they feel like they're thriving in one area and they have this tunnel vision, like, oh, there's no way this ineffective communication is hurting me. Like, business is pretty good. But they're an absentee father, their relationship's on the rocks. Like, I want to help bring in a well-rounded picture of their life right now, and I'll start asking questions. So one of my simple strategies is like 1 to 10 rating scale. Like, how's your marriage? How's this? How's that? So I have tangible evidence, like, okay, here's where you're telling me you're at. Where do you want to be? And I'll start asking, why do you think your relationship's a 3 out of a 10, and where you told me you want it to be a 10 out of 10? And I subtly start putting the ownership on them, and they start to acknowledge and accept that. And I just keep pushing and prodding, like, how is it serving you not having date night with your significant other? How is it serving you missing yet another soccer game for your daughter? How is it serving you, not having a good relationship with your employees? Just asking them obvious answer questions, But in doing so, they're taking ownership and beginning to really digest just how much of an impact their behaviors having on both their situation and not achieving the goals they have.
Do you think that quantification plays a big role? Where you go, what's your relationship right now?
I think it's very helpful.
Have you heard of this, the hidden versus observable metrics?
No, tell me.
Essentially, money is an observable metric, right? If I have a $200,000 car, you can see that. But if I have the worst relationship on planet Earth, you may not necessarily, maybe I'm slapping my spouse in front of you. But if, let's say I have a great relationship, but I'm really poor, like I have no money, you can see that because I drive a beater with a heater. But like I have the best relationship in the world. Like we're so happy, we're so excited to be together. That's a that's a hidden metric essentially. It's non-observable to you and anyone else. So there's no score that I get for having a great relationship. So essentially what you're doing is you're just putting a score on that relationship. So there's no longer hidden any longer. And there's like these people out there who they seek like, what are the hidden metrics that if you could bring to light would make your life better? So like hours spent in a hammock every given year, like how many cervezas you drink on the beach. It's like whatever your thing is that you think would make life better. Like whether it's, more time spent on the golf course. I spent 60 hours on the golf course in 2023. I want to spend 100. That would legitimately make my life better. Yeah. But you don't quantify it. So once you do begin to quantify it, it becomes observable. And we're not hardwired for data, but we're hardwired to like have a score essentially. That's why money's the best game ever, because it's the most scoreable. It's most widely played. Everyone's playing it. You can present if you're doing well or you're doing poorly at it. So you brought those metrics out for people so that they can start to say, oh shit, yeah, like my relationship is probably a 2. I mean, I kind of like knew it in the back of my head, but I never verbalized 2 out of 10. Yeah, I don't want it to be a 2. Okay, what are the things I need to do? It's like, well, I need to stop showing up home at 10 p.m. at night. Okay, that's pretty obvious. You think maybe without even kind of knowing that back end, you've done that.
Well, so I loved that framework. I was not familiar with it. I always say I'm making the intangible tangible.
Yeah.
I like that framework. It's a little more digestible. So thank you for sharing that. But you're right. It provides more clarity. And like as humans, like we love progress, or at least the perception of it. We love numbers. Numbers are easy for us. So
number go up, baby. That's what we tell our clients.
Yeah, bingo. So if we can see it, it's like, oh yeah, I'm on the right track. Or like, oh shit, that's not where I want this score to be. And then we use those periodically throughout the coaching relationship. I'm checking in. What's your average anger been lately? Your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-trust. So we can keep progress, keep easy, simple metrics in place every step of the way. So now we have tangible data to refer to.
How many data points do you have, and what are the big hitters? If you have 60, you don't need to try to rattle them off, but what are like the big hitters?
Very individualized, of course. Confidence.
Interesting.
Self-trust.
Trying to score myself right now.
Anger. Anxiety. Energy, I get thrown in there a lot.
Energy, confidence, anxiety.
Self-trust.
Anger. Interesting. And where are you generally seeing people fall off the wagon? Is there 1 or 2 of those that really like drive people? Anxiety or
anxiety
like
and
confidence?
Anger. I mean, honestly, all of those. Those are the big heavy hitters. But like anxiety, high, self-esteem, trust or belief. I'll interchange the word based on the individual. Being very low is a big one. Yeah, like not trusting myself. I see this. I have a couple clients right now who have a corporate job, but they're trying to get their side hustle off the ground running. And it's just like, can I do it? I don't really know. Am I worthy of doing it? Am I worthy of ascending to this next level of financial success? So we deal a lot with that.
How do you counsel people on that? One of the ones that I sort of really like is I think it's an Alex Hormozy quote where he's like, you don't want to have self-belief or confidence. You want to have a stack of undeniable proof that you're capable of doing the thing. That's kind of how I think. Like I just started martial arts, as we talked about. I don't have just like, that's the funny meme where it's like guys who think they'll win a fight, and it's a pie chart, and it's like reasons why, and it's like 1% I've actually trained in martial arts, and it's like 99% it's like, dude, you don't know me. When I see red, I just go. It's kind of like that. Like, well, you have an inflated confidence of yourself once you actually start to train. It's like, I've got a stack of proof behind me. Like I've done some of this actually.
Yeah, and your brain wants stories. It wants to find evidence to support the stories. That's what I meant to say. And if you're telling yourself bad, negative stories that are rooted in lack of esteem, belief, and trust, I mean, your mind must just be a shit show. It's hard. It's negative.
Well, there's actually legit science around that too, because specifically with men, when you get a win in some sort of a thing, you get like a little small dopamine bump, but you'll also get like a bump in testosterone. So there's like people who are like on a streak, and it's because like I win, I get more confidence, I get the dopamine hit, I increase my testosterone, I go into the next one, I'm more confident, I win again, I win again, I win again. So you see that sometimes in combat sports, but also just in other things
Like
where
sales calls, you sign
you're
a
just
client.
like, dude, I'm knocking them down. Boom, 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 boom. Not to get crass, but I felt like when I was dating and I was going on more dates, I just got more confident. It just felt like so, not to say easy, but I just kind of knew what to say, knew how to do it. And that's why I tell all my friends who are dating, I'm like, you just got to go on a lot of dates. And they're like, oh, it's so expensive and boring. I'm just like, you know, you want to get the results, you want to get better or not. Like, it really is, unfortunately, a practice thing. I wish the world wasn't like that. But as you get more practice, you get more confidence. It fuels into the next one. You have success on that one. And then you're also less concerned when you have one that doesn't work out. Like whether that be you lose a game or a bad date, you're like, yeah, well, you know, last 8 were good. I lost this one, whatever. We'll get back at them.
Yeah, and you're more neutralized to actually maybe find a learning lesson if necessary.
Yeah. I'm sure you can find it like on a win streak there. Interesting. So that confidence in yourself, the anxiety, the anger piece, that's not one that I have, but I do see that like often from people, as you stated, the reacting instead of responding thing, where like I'll say something and maybe it's like there's just the slightest behavior correction. Someone will just it's like, I need to dig my heels in right now and I need to fight this person verbally and tell them all the things that they're doing wrong. Cause it's like, who are you to tell me about this thing? Yeah. Yeah, testosterone changes during vicarious experiences of winning and losing among fans. So this is actually through vicarious experiences.
That's
This
wild.
is interesting. So these findings suggest that watching one's hero win or lose has a physiological consequence that extended beyond changes in mood and self-esteem. I believe that. If you have like your team like is playing on like Sunday and you like are really jacked up and then the Browns lose, you're just like, oh, you're like, man, this is like a good day, but like, really would have liked the Browns to have won today.
Dude, I've been dejected for 30 years as a Redskins fan. I get it.
I
get it.
Well, yeah, we're Brownies fans. So interesting. So as your business is growing and developing, like, how are you getting these mental side of the coin clients? Because you had your fitness side of the business. Now mental's getting bigger and bigger. Where are the clients coming from? And I know you said it's some entrepreneurs, and we'll get to golf in a second. And you also had some poker in there, but how are you acquiring them?
So fortunately, what I think contributed to a lot of the success I had in nutrition coaching was I didn't talk much about food and nutrition. I filtered everything through the lens of mindset, through the lens of emotional intelligence. So all of my niche in nutrition was sustainable weight loss and focusing on building the beliefs and behaviors around keeping the weight off for good. Let's be frank, 95% of people know how to eat healthy. They know the difference between nutritious and non-nutritious choices. So that carried with me for 15 years at this point already. And then when it came time to make that transition, I've been posting content on social media almost daily for 8 years now. So at that time, my nutrition coaching, about 95% of my clients came from Instagram. That, as you can imagine, was quite frustrating, relying on the algorithm and feeling glued to an app, feeling glued to my phone. So I made a conscious commitment to start building my business offline as best as I could. I love to write. I'm a creator at heart, so I still write I'm very active on LinkedIn, especially now.
Okay.
But getting involved. So I teach once a week a sauna cold plunge class in a local yoga, cold plunge studio, if you will. I do speaking engagements in Tampa. I mean, I podcast a lot, guesting and hosting. I mean, obviously I'm here with you, just connecting, meeting people. I'm in networking groups. I'm hosting free speaking or education about hypnosis events.
You're putting yourself in all the different
Well, I like to say I'm casting as many lines as I can into the water
Yeah.
and knowing they'll bite in time because I love what I do, especially as we were talking before we hit record, like, educating on hypnosis. I mean, there's so many misconceptions around that, and fully believing I can help anybody who wants to change and level up is such a beautiful opportunity to have that I'm going to make the most of it.
That's interesting. You talked about your business being mindset instead of diet. That's like, I was just thinking of Noom. That's like almost their whole business model. It's like $100 million plus company at this point in time. Yeah. And you are casting a huge net. And I think it sounds like because you're passionate about this and you believe in what you're selling, if you will, it gives you the confidence to go do that. I think if you were just like a real estate agent or like a stockbroker, you might be like, this is kind of bullshit that I'm at another networking event, like just looking for a wealthy housewife who wants to like roll her 401k into my account.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell people who are looking to start a business, like, look, if you can start any business, there's a certain set of criteria that you're going to want to look at. Is this industry growing or is it fading? Like, don't get into the newspaper business. It's a bad business to be in right now. E-commerce might be a good one for you. Like crypto might be good. AI definitely going to be good. If you figure out how to get in like lithium mining or something. There's like industries that are growing. There's industries that are dying. But if you get to pick anything that you do, pick something that you're passionate about. Pick something that you actually feel confident that this is making the world a better place in every way, shape, and form. You're not like having to like suck the life out of this thing to get this thing to grow. And I said it on that podcast that I was on midweek. If you're selling chocolates, you can think of it in two ways mentally. You can be like, I'm selling happiness to people. Like, I am making people's lives better. Like, grandma's going to get this, and this is going to remind her of, what it was like when she was a kid in a candy store. And it's like, boom, like spark of joy. But if you don't have that mental thought process that that's it, you're like, I'm selling poison to people. Like, this is sugar that's going to make them fat. They're going to get diabetes. They're going to lose a leg. Like, it's just all mindset, right? So do something that you legitimately believe in because you're going to outsell, outwork, out-enjoy that process. And it sounds like you've found that thing that you really love and believe in, and you feel the utmost confidence going out and selling it.
Yeah, because I think the superpower behind success is authenticity. And I'm an open book. I mean, I've talked about my divorce, terrible financial months, like, because people love relatability. That's how you connect with individuals. So by sharing my journey and obviously infusing the teaching lessons, the educational nuggets, like, I'm a real human who they can relate to a similar experience of pain and hardship. And look, he's still standing, he's thriving, he's growing, he's learning, he's knocked down, but he gets back up. So through storytelling of my own life and of course my clients, I think that added relatability kind of diffuses the resistance most people might have around, mindset coaching. What is that? Why do I need one?
Interesting. Talk to me about golf, man. I know we got a lot of people who are going to listen and they're going to just be like, get to the golf stuff. I want to get better at golf. How did you start to get connected with golfers? And then talk to me about the unique challenges associated with that game.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll lead with the Jack Nicklaus quote. Golf is 90% mental, 10% physical,
Got that
baby.
written down.
Yeah.
Jack, that's our guy. He's an Ohio State guy.
Yeah. I actually played yesterday, and the guy played with just a random guy. He was just like, I fucking hate this game. It's so mental. I'm just like, music to my ears. Tell me more. What are you feeling right now?
It's funny because literally earlier today, we have this company chat on Google, and I just was like looking for a GIF. And it was something related to fun, and it was Peter Griffin, and he's like taking his golf clubs and he's just throwing them, and he's telling his wife like, "We're having fun."
Oh man,
I like that's golf, yeah.
No, so I got introduced to a buddy, client turned friend he's in IT world, but he's a 2 handicap now.
That means he shoots 2 under.
2 over technically.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So he's become a great friend at this point, and he is the one who really just kind of helped me fall back in love with the game. Just hearing his passion, talking about it, where he was struggling, I was like, oh, I miss some of that. So that's how I got back into it, a friend of a friend connection. And then I just took it and ran with it because he experienced a massive impact. I mean, he shot like a 69, which is his lowest ever, like
Whoa.
a couple weeks later.
That's crazy
He
impressive.
hasn't three putt since Nam, and that was like his first big hurdle. He's like, I'm always three putting. If I miss my first putt, there's so much pressure and anxiety. I can't get over that, and it's costing me tournaments. So that's where it really started. And as far as what it is now, I see a huge opportunity. Everyone wants to try to outswing their terrible thought processes and their lack of emotional management. I'm like, dude, you're wasting hundreds, if not thousands of dollars tweaking your swing repetitively year after year. What if you learned not to react to slicing it off the tee, or not to react to the foursome riding your ass where you feel like you have so much pressure on you, especially on the first tee, and instead you learn to turn down the emotional volume, not let one emotional trigger accumulate and compound into the next, and you can be focused. You can consistently execute your pre-shot routine. Most people I've talked to so far, like double-digit handicappers, they estimate that between 8 and 20 shots per round are unfocused and rushed. What if you cut that in half? You're all of a sudden shooting in the low 80s, maybe the high 70s. It's like, dude, just like that.
So kind of one of the initial early things, it sounds like, is put a pre-swing
Gotta have a pre-shot routine. Yeah.
And then slow down and just not worry about, as you said, the foursome on your ass. That was always something when I played golf. I was just like, I felt like a lot of pressure, like hurry up. Because if I'm shooting 15 a hole and my friends are like shooting like 6, they're like, come on, like we're up at the green and I'm still like hacking at it. And I'm just like, this is not fun for me. Like I can tell I'm a burden for you guys.
Well, so it's interesting. I always say like we're all hardwired with 3 core fears. I call it the fear jar: judgment, abandonment, rejection. You feel those fears more than ever on that first tee when there's a group of people behind you, or when you're playing with your buddies. It's just like, oh my God, it's life or death, which if you think about it, it makes sense. Centuries ago, if you were judged, rejected, or abandoned, you literally died. Your tribe ostracized you, you were eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, or you starved to death. Those are in your DNA today. They're as real as ever. And what happens is when you feel that fear, you tense up. Tightness permeates your body. Tightness and tension are the antithesis of a smooth, fluid golf swing.
Makes sense.
And emotion, again, it's energy in motion. If you have unexpressed or unmanaged emotion, anger, pressure, it just sits and you tighten up. You can't swing a golf club effectively.
It's funny you say that because the martial arts coaches that I'm around, they're like, relax. I'm like, I'm going to fight, coach. Like, you can't relax. But they're like, your shoulders are like up at your ears right now, Alex. I'm like, oh, okay. And now when I start to see someone else and they're like, I can't get the footwork. My coaches are like, you're like way, way too tight. You're just like really wound up about this. And that makes total sense that you can't be loose and fluid in the golf game if you're like high pressure. And a lot of that, it's funny because no one else is putting pressure on you. Like nobody gives a shit. Like Alex shot a 150, like, but it's like, well, they're like, he's not a golfer. It doesn't matter. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't think less about him because he doesn't golf. It just is what it is.
And like I mentioned, you spend so much time alone with your thoughts. And most people, like one of the lowest hanging fruits for golfers is like the expectation they have, I should hit a perfect shot every time, and reality. Like you go look, even like, I don't know how much you follow golf, but like when DeChambeau just won the US Open.
I was going to ask you about Rory, man.
Okay,
we
we'll
got to
talk
talk about Rory.
Yeah. Like the last round, he hit like 50% of greens in regulation. Like he was just missing all over the place. But golf is a game of low scoring, not hit the prettiest shot. So we have this expectation to get this beautiful trajectory on our shot. And when we don't do it 100% of the time, that difference between expectation and reality is where we invite in frustration, anger, and that permeates to our self-talk. That's where all the motherfuckers get dropped in between shots, and we get tight, we get tense, we get angry, and they just compound one mistake after another.
It's funny because sometimes you'll see a golfer, they'll hit a shot, and then they'll just like get pissed off before the ball even lands, and then they'll zoom up and they'll be like, it's like a pretty good shot actually, and they'll be like, oh, okay. It's just funny. It's like the reaction didn't necessarily even have merit. That's one of the things that I read and stuck with me the most in that inner game of tennis. He goes, don't judge what just happened, observe. He said, because if you hit a ball out of bounds, you're judging bad. You're bad. That was a bad shot. But the person on the other side of the court is judging, that was good. That was good for me. That was a good shot that he hit out of bounds. And then the referee is not judging it at all in any way, shape, or form. He's like, that's point one way or the other. It doesn't matter to that person. So it's your internal thing that's telling you that was good or bad, not necessarily the actual world. So he's like, just observe, like what happened? Like start to slow down and go, well, what actually happened? Like was my wrist, not parallel? Was it, did I not roll it over? Like, did I connect with the ball too high? Were my footwork bad? So instead of judging yourself, you're actually just observing what's happening. And when you're not judging, you can make changes without like tying your emotions to that thing.
Bingo. And I would add, when you're observing, you need to do so through a lens of non-judgmental curiosity. It's simply feedback. The ball gives you feedback on your swing, your pre-shot routine, and you just learn something. But again, that becomes increasingly difficult if your expectation is to hit like Scotty Scheffler every swing when it's just not your reality.
Interesting. Okay, so pre-swing routine. Trying to relax yourself a little bit. Just take the shot as information, feedback. What are some of the other core things that people listening out there as a golfer might be able to think about?
Yes, I think the biggest tangible takeaway is in emotional regulation. Again, it's natural to feel frustration or anger after a poor shot, a mistake, or a poor club selection. You have to learn to diffuse that emotion. So I'm a big fan of breath work. I think there are several on the course breath work strategies that you can implement. So my favorite, I call it the 1 to 1, 2, 3 breath. It's as simple as a 4 count in through the nose, a 4 count out through the mouth with pursed lips like you're blowing out a candle. And then so you do a 4 to 4, a 4 to 8, and a 4 to 12, hence the 1 to 1, 2, 3 ratio. But what that does is start to turn down the volume of your emotional brain. It slows down your heart rate. It slows down your breath, and it puts you back in the driver's seat of your day rather than whatever emotion has hijacked the driver's seat previously.
Are you doing that pre-shot?
So I'm doing that while I'm riding to my next shot, while I'm waiting for my partner to hit.
But when I'm riding to my next shot, I'm cracking my next beer. Is that
so
helping
in between
me in
sips?
my game?
In between sips, absolutely.
Me and my friends joke about that. Like, how are you going to take the game serious when you had 8 beers before noon?
And that's totally fair.
I don't golf a lot, so I don't want to be drunk at like noon. That's just not that fun for me, especially when it's hot out. You're just like, oh, what am I going to do the rest of the day? But sorry to joke and interrupt there. But okay, so you're doing that on your way to your next shot. You kind of just. Is your main idea lowering your heart rate?
Bingo. And starting to diffuse that emotion that's accumulated as tension, the shoulders and your ears. It's just going to start to allow you to relax a little bit. And the breath itself is going to ground you in the present moment. I mean, sometimes we often forget, like, just as much as, quote, negative emotions disrupt our golf game, the positive ones do too. I mean, just yesterday, I piped a drive right down the middle. I'm thinking par. I freaking triple bogeyed the hole because I'm 3 steps ahead already and I'm losing focus. I'm shanking the next couple of shots, and that too is just as destructive.
Well, my friend will always say this. He's like the guy who has the best tee shot, and then the 2 or 3 other guys, they like hit it out to the sides. He's like, you won't know the final score until everybody actually gets there and putts. And he's like, a lot of times, he's like, person who hits the best tee shot, they'll get the worst score or one of the worst scores. That's with average golfers, pros. But yeah, it might be that thing where you're like jacked up. You're like, yep, eagle, like, yep, par, birdie. And your next shot is just like off. You're like, oh, now I'm totally out of whack. Like, God, I was thinking birdie. Now I'm thinking like birdie, par save even. But the other guys are just like, okay, not a great shot, but I got to clean this one up. I'm ready for this.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of the best work, and people don't want to hear this, is done off the course. Like you need to get to the origin of like let's use anger, for example. Like so many of us have had anger modeled on one of 2 extremes. Either our parents didn't show it all, or I'll use the dads, for example, they yelled, they screamed, maybe there was even physical abuse. So we typically either mirror the way anger was modeled for us, or we do the exact opposite. And we just need to begin to learn, like, how was anger modeled to me? How is my, pre-programmed reaction serving me? And by beginning to unpack this behavior, its origin, and start to infuse some logic, we can start to diffuse like the stranglehold it has on us in some of those triggering moments.
It's interesting because when I was in athletics, I would get really frustrated with myself. Like I would be really disappointed in my performance. Like not even necessarily after the game, but sometimes like mid-game or like even like more practice probably. But in the business world, I feel like I'm really calm. Like I am not emotional.
I get that vibe.
Like people have even said that I'm emotionless in certain instances. I think that's come with time. I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I think just you go through 10 years of business and nothing's blown up and fallen apart yet. So you're like, okay, well, like we're getting sued. All right, well, been sued once before. Like it's probably like that again. It's no big deal. It sucks, but it is what it is. So that's interesting because I've never really thought about that I'm so calm in business, but in athletics and those activities, I get really frustrated and not to say flustered, thrown off, but there's definitely some of those traits there. And I wonder why there's a dichotomy there between the two aspects of my life.
Well, knowing as I've slowly gotten to know you, sports was such an integral part of your childhood. That's when you were most impressionable.
Definitely put some self-worth on my performance in athletics. I don't think anyone else did. I don't think my parents even really cared. They like would come to my games, but they're like, "You're doing great."
Yeah.
They were like just very average, like soccer sport fans.
Yeah, so there's your self-worth tied into it. And again, your triggers maybe aren't on the battlefield of business, but there are triggers on the soccer field, the practice field, the weight room that do get you flustered and frustrated. And that's where a lot of your triggers reside.
I think maybe just I always expected a lot out of myself when it came to soccer, but not to say that I don't expect a lot out of myself in business, but I'm maybe more humble that I don't think I have all the answers. I'm approaching it not with certainty, but with doubt. Doubts that I have the right answers, doubts that I know the absolute best path forward, doubts that I know the perfect words to say to you to make you feel, safe and secure at this company. I'm not selling absolute certainty. I'm more than willing to tell people I don't have all the answers. I make the wrong decisions. Sometime at your tenure at this company, I'm going to do something that wasn't the right decision, or it made you mad, made you frustrated, and I want you to just understand that I'm giving you the right to also do those things. Whereas with sports, I don't necessarily think that I gave myself that same license. I'll tell you this story, and I wasn't going to tell it, but I'm getting back into soccer because I'm playing in my alumni high school game in 6 weeks. I know everyone listening is going to be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you're getting like hyped up and psyched out for this. So I've been playing like some indoor, like one of my friends has a team. I'm like, call me if you need a sub. And he called me on Wednesday. I had played 2 weeks before in a game, hadn't played in like a year, and I actually played pretty well. And I was like, okay, I'm fucking back. I'm back. I went on Wednesday. I played so bad. We lost. I played terrible. Like, I was so fatigued, so tired. Like, I felt like I was a liability for the team. When I'm like, I'm supposed to be one of the best players on the team. And I'm driving home, and I'm just like, all the experts. And I'm like, well, let's show ourselves some grace here. You've played 2 times in the last 12 months. Like, you're 32. Those were clearly college-age kids that are probably playing right now in college. Like, why do you have this expectation that you would be the best player on the field? Still in the back of my head, I should be, but kind of my more logical brain is like, okay, this is information. This is observation. I'm trying to pull in that inner game of tennis thing, but it's difficult for me. It's definitely hardwired to be like, you're a POS. Like, you should be the best. You played terrible. Like, you got to figure this thing out.
Yeah,
I'm working on it. But
we all have that
figured out.
We all have that inner critic, that judgmental voice. And yeah, I mean, I think you did an excellent job. You just did a great explanation of demonstrating the ability to zoom out. Easier said than done, but that is when we turn up the volume of that logic critical thinking that we have that helps us rationalize, like, oh yeah, it has been twice in the last 15 years. Like, give myself some grace. I'm going to hit the practice or the weight room or the sprints harder, and I'll get back there.
Yeah. I want to defend myself. I ran sprints before the game. I got a late call up into the game. I wasn't supposed to be inserted into the game, so I was a little fatigued, but nonetheless, there's more fitness to be had there. All right, so talk to me about what you're going to say to yourself between shots. Give me if things are going okay, or give me you just absolutely blasted one, like way out of bounds, 60 yards wide. You're wanting to curse yourself. You're riding up to that. How are you talking to yourself between good shots and bad shots? I assume there's some self-talk internally that needs to happen to get back on track.
I like to teach, and I do this with myself. I'm not perfect by any means. Just literally state what happened. Oh, I sliced it into the woods. Hmm. Next, let's lead with curiosity. I wonder why that happened. That's interesting. So you acknowledge what happened, like just state it matter of fact. Then you begin to understand or seek out, why did that happen? Was I distracted? Did I rush? Did I not follow through well? Whatever it may be. And that's slowly, those two questions are very powerful, but you're starting to turn down the volume by focusing specifically on something, the volume of your emotional brain, by just getting curious. That curiosity is so curative. So I really, really challenge and push those I work with to get curious right off the bat. Like exactly after that shot is hit, you see the trajectory. Cool. Okay. To the right, to the left. Why? Okay. And then boom. After that, it's next shot mentality. You can't dwell on that for too long. So something I've started recently implementing too, which isn't self-talk, but it's important here, is like, let's say you hit a bad shot. Take one more practice swing right after. Re-grease that groove of a positive feeling swing, so you can help bolster that positive mindset. Because even doing that's going to impact your self-talk in that aftermath.
You take that swing and you want it to feel better, or maybe even just tell yourself, "Oh, that felt better."
Correct.
Interesting. Okay, so matter of fact approach to it. Observe what happened. Okay, I sliced that one. I probably, didn't have my hips square, or whatever it is. Then you go up to the next shot. Now, here's what happens to me when I golf. I hit a bad shot. Now I'm getting nervous because I'm like, "Oh, this is getting bad. This could turn ugly really fast if I hit another bad shot." And then
But why? Fear of judgment.
Fear of judgment. Fear of compounding the mistake, not being able to course correct the mistake. For some reason, I believe like I should be able to course correct the mistake in some way, shape, or form. I expect high expectations of myself in a lot of ways. So how do you kind of cut that off so that someone doesn't really get to rolling negatively?
So the Band-Aid is the breath work. It's a deep-rooted problem. You can put a short-term surface-level Band-Aid on it in the round, but that's where, this is a great example, I'm glad you brought it up, that's where the off-the-course, away from the course work comes into. When did you learn to put this high pressure and these high expectations on yourself? Why do you feel this judgment, this fear of rejection in these particular moments? Why is it such an emotionally charged response to potentially feel embarrassed in front of your friends, in front of strangers? So we, through hypnosis, begin to uncover the origin, because those sabotaging behaviors, those emotions that are derailing you, they're all learned, which means they can be unlearned and then replaced with something that actually serves you. And that's the deep work we'll do on the mindset coaching calls. We'll get to the origin of when you started putting this unnecessary level of pressure on yourself. Why did 9-year-old you as a soccer athlete put such an obnoxious amount of pressure on himself? And we can start to diffuse that and go back in time to reframe the situation, or give that younger you the resources, the love, or the support he needed, which has that ripple effect into the present day as well.
An idea that's getting really popular right now that you're kind of hitting on is having low expectations. Not low standards, but low expectations. Charlie Munger had talked about this for 30 years. This is like one of his 3 tenets that he talked about over and over again in speeches. And a writer that I really like, Neil Strauss, who wrote The Game, and then he wrote The Truth. He has a new book coming out, and the title is like The Power of Low Expectations, or something along those lines. And I was just thinking, that makes so much sense that if I hit a bad drive and then I'm walking up to the next shot and I'm like expecting to stick the green, instead if you're like, I expect to just get it that way, you feel much better when you got it that way. And instead of you getting increasingly frustrated, you actually feel more positive about the circumstance that just happened. That's kind of like me in that game. I expected a lot. I didn't deliver.
Bingo.
The first game, I didn't expect a lot because I was like, I have not legitimately played in 11 months, 12 months. I had extremely low expectations, and then I played fine.
Yeah.
The second game, my expectations were significantly higher because I was like, I played good last time. I could do this again. And I didn't deliver. So it was maybe the performance was very similar. It's hard to tell. But it might have just been the way that I observed it that was actually, impacting me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example. I love how you brought up standards too. Big differentiator there. We got to be clear.
Yeah.
We don't lower our standards, but all of the frustration and the mental agony we put ourselves through is because of the gap between expectations and reality.
Yeah.
Again, we don't want to expect that we're going to have a shit performance because we know our standards are up to par with practicing and putting in the work, yet we can't expect to hit a home run every single at bat or to, stick the green every shot.
having high standards, but maybe low expectations. Interesting. Are there other key points about golf that people are missing out on? What about when you get to the putting green? We just watched I don't want to call it a historic meltdown. I want to be fair to Rory. I mean, he's great, and there's been worse ones. But if you're not a golf fan, he was a stroke ahead on 16 or
2 strokes ahead.
2 strokes ahead, and then he missed 2 3-foot putts in 3 holes or so.
I think he missed one of them was technically under 3 feet. Yeah,
Okay.
It hurts.
Which, as a professional golfer, those are like 98.
I think they pulled some stat. He hadn't missed something that short and like an astronomical number of attempts.
So that's either A, just a high statistical anomaly, or B, his brain got the better of him and something happened in terms of his mental processing of that situation that he just couldn't hold it together. That's a guy who's held it together like many a time before. He's been in that situation.
Yes.
He's not like, oh my gosh, I've never been here before. Like, he's won majors. He's won lots of different championships. And he's been one of the best players in the world for a long time. So as you're walking up to the putting green, is there a different process, similar process? How are you thinking about something like that?
So it's funny. I was on a podcast a couple days ago, and someone asked me, like, if you're Rory's caddy, what are you telling him on 16, on 17? I'm like, to be frank, I don't think there's anything magical I'm going to tell him different than what his caddy or he's already telling himself. What I think happened, and this is not some rocket science opinion, is like he's carrying the pressure of not having won a major in 10 years. And he found himself in a spot to just run away with it. And he succumbed to the pressure. So going back to what we talked about earlier, that emotional accumulation, that pressure was starting to weigh on him. And putting
at that point, his expectation was like, you're going to win. You should win.
Should win. Bingo.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in putting, more than anything, like any little bit of tension, that club turns 1 degree to the right, the ball's going to go. The longer the putt, the longer it's going to be, or further away it's going to be from your target. So I think inevitably what happened is the pressure of the moment got to him. And you're right. It's not that he hasn't been in these situations before, but I think there was so much emotion in this one, like 10-year drought. That's just a lot.
Especially when he's that good.
Yeah.
So he probably should have won more in that period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation like that, you can't get rid of the emotion. You can't get rid of the expectation. You can't get rid of that fear. Is there anything that you're thinking about trying to consider in that moment that's going to get you across the finish line?
You slow down. And so much easier said than done. You walk away. You line up for the putt. I mean, so the worst shot you can make is what I like to call the anyway shot. You know something's off. You're rushed. You're tight. You're out of position, but you hit it anyway.
Okay.
So I can't help but imagine Rory on one, if not both of those occasions.
Just trying to get it done.
And he felt something was off. I don't know what, a breath, a cadence, something so minuscule that only he probably will ever be aware of, and he probably should have stepped away. I don't know what it was, and it's so hard to do because you already spend an exorbitant amount of time slowing down to do your routines.
Yeah, it's almost like you're slowing down again and again and again and again. And then at what point are you overthinking it? And now you're in your head, and it's like a terrible cycle. Because I was almost going to say, like, is there ever an instance where you're just like, going to get up there and do it? Like, stop thinking, essentially. Like, kind of try to shut my thinking brain off and just react.
Yeah, and I think there's merit in that, but I'll argue at the pre-shot routine, and I think this will resonate with you because you read the inner game of tennis. I read the inner game of golf. So he talks about self 1 and self 2.
Yeah.
You got to give self 1 something to work on. So self 2 can come online, if you will. So that pre-shot routine serves as that distraction.
I see. The self 1 is like your forward brain, the brain that's telling you, like, okay, like, hold your wrist steady, like, relax grip. It's like the instruction, essentially. The one that feels like it's in charge.
Yep.
2 is that one in the background that kind of is just reacting. In tennis, probably a little bit more because the ball's coming at you. You just have to do something. He describes self 2 as the one that can, when the ball's just like hit at you and you're at the net, you can just move your racket and get there. And you're like, how did I just hit that back in bounds? Like, you didn't think about it. You weren't like, okay, the ball is coming to my left-hand side. I need to move my racket over. I need to turn it around. You just do it. Whereas in golf, yeah, I mean, there's a lot less a 2. It's a lot of 1, I would imagine.
Well, so 1's the distraction. The goal is still to quiet 1. 2 is where in golf self-trust is going to really come online because you know how to swing. You've swung a billion times on the range, especially as someone of Rory's caliber. So at that point, you need to just surrender and quiet self 1 and let self 2 take over, who knows how to go through your pre-shot routine, knows how to fluidly and effortlessly swing through to sink that putt. And I think the best part about this, though, for Rory, I mean, yeah, it's a shit situation. We'd all kill to be in that situation, but for someone like him, he's going through the ringer. I think he'll come back even more focused and motivated, and he'll pull out another handful of majors in the years to come.
Yeah, I think he said he was taking some time off of golf.
Yeah, he's taking a month off.
Clearly, that's pretty brutal.
Yeah,
kind of all exasperates itself now because he's got to get that thought out of his head next time he gets up there.
And
if you were going to give him advice now, what would you say to him?
Don't change a thing. Keep doing what you're doing. You're a winner. You've proven over and over. You'd have to really lean into finding all that evidence to support all of the work ethic you've put in. There are learning lessons to glean from that. I can't speak from him, but I would encourage him spend the time reflecting on the mental and emotional hurdles that you did not conquer and take away what you need to and bring them into the British Open.
I would imagine that this is really true in golf, that people are trying to change things constantly.
Oh my God, all the time.
Like, oh, okay, I'm going to change my shoes. My stance. I'm going to be a little wider, a little more narrow. The ball's going to be a little bit more forward on my foot. I'm going to put a little more weight on my back foot.
The exhale, the inhale. When am I hitting?
I imagine that is something that, and I don't want to make it about business, but I see so many people that they're trying to change things constantly in their business life that I'm like, you just need to continue to do one thing for the next 3 years. And then at that point, you can tell me if it works or doesn't work. But I need you to stop chasing the next profit motive. And I know you coming from a person who's changed their business numerous times, but you've stuck with it from a longer period of time. I have so many friends that they've done 5 businesses in 2 years. And I'm like, quit. You had one that was working and for some reason you quit. I'm like, what are you doing? Just keep going. Build that to a 5-person company and then be like, I'm ready to quit this thing. Because then quitting is I'm ready to pass this to someone else. I'm ready to sell it. I'm ready to do something different at that point in time.
Yeah.
But it's difficult for people to actually just keep going. And that's probably self 1, where it's no, we need to do something different. No, we need to change. And I imagine that's probably in golf, one of the worst sports for that.
Yeah, my mentor called it shiny object syndrome. We just run to that next shiny thing.
Entrepreneurs love shiny objects, man.
Absolutely. And I think too, I talk a lot about the difference between being committed versus interested in something.
Okay.
I'm interested in having 10 businesses. Cool. That sounds great. More revenue streams, fun. Of course, obviously, I'm over exaggerating here. Yet being committed to one is incredibly challenging. There are so many unknowns. There are so many hardships I'm going to face that I don't even know are coming my way. It really demands, it's a full body experience. Whereas when you're interested in something, I like to say you're just lost in la la land. It sounds good, but you don't actually begin to acknowledge all of the hard work that will come when you do commit. And hard work is scary. It brings us out of our comfort zone. Our subconscious does not like that. So we deploy several sabotaging behaviors to keep us stuck in that bubble of safety and familiarity.
Well, also, if you're changing to a new thing, then you can reset the expectation of success.
Mm-hmm.
I just started this thing.
Bingo.
The swing isn't really working, but it's a new swing. So I'm working on it.
Yeah.
As opposed to, this is a swing that I've had for 10 years. And I actually have dedicated myself to slowly but steadily improving it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's almost reassuring at some capacity when you can start over and you don't have to make the thing work. You can start with a blank slate. And maybe that's what's happening with my friends who are just skipping from business to business to business, especially ones that have some traction. Maybe they get nervous, this business is actually kind of working.
It's a coping mechanism.
What's the next step? I have to hire some people. I have to get a legit accountant now. I need to get some lawyers. I need to understand how the sales tax thing works. I think maybe it is. And I've never thought about it like that. But if you quit and move on to something different, then you don't have to consider what it takes to actually scale that thing and stay committed to it.
Yeah, which then it begins to question your lack of, or the amount of worth you have in yourself, belief. Can I do this? Am I deserving? Like you mentioned, your friends having some success. Ooh, do I deserve this success? I don't know. I'm going to cool off a little bit. Maybe I'll just try something else. Yeah.
Yes, shiny object syndrome is definitely extremely real in the entrepreneurship community. And I would imagine that's true with golf also. You maybe have what you do something slightly different, you hit a good shot and you're like, "Oh, it worked."
Yeah.
And this is something that I think as Annie Duke talked about, it's resulting, where I'm sure you know this because she's a poker gal, but you'll play the wrong hand and get a good result. And you'll go, this was a good play. I attached the result to my action. And instead of saying like that was a random experience and that was lucky because whatever the solver would tell me that was a bad decision, you go like, yeah, playing like 7-5 is a good play for me. That because that one time I won with it. Same thing is true with like golf. Like you might like my buddy, like poor him. He gets poked fun of a lot around here. He sets himself up for it though. But he'll just say the silliest things. He's like a fresh golfer, and I'm not in the golf clan here at the business. I just overhear what happens. But Nick, who you met, he played in high school, so he's been playing for 15, 17 years now at some capacity. And this other guy, he'll be changing something every week. And he said out loud, like, I finally think I've figured it out. It's like, I just need to stop drinking caffeine before I play. And it's funny because he'll do this over and over again. He'll be like, I got new shoes and now I'm not slicing it anymore. And he is like the epitome of like change a thing and something happens. Like he's 5 strokes lower that day. And he'll be like, it's because I didn't drink caffeine that day. And Nick's just like, oh my gosh, he's like these new golfers, like you just can't take them anywhere kind of thing. But he's attaching a result to the thing that occurred as opposed to systemically making slow and steady changes.
Bingo. The most successful people are process oriented. Like Scotty Scheffler is a great example. He was just talking about, after he won a couple or 10,000 tournaments in a row, it seems like at the time.
Won Muirfield and I was there on Friday.
Oh, right on. So he just talked about like he's going to get up and he's going to do the same thing over and over. Max Homa too, like didn't make the cut last week. He's like, I'm going to get up. I'm going to spend time with my family. I'm going to go to the range. I'm going to play golf again next week. Like it's process. And then an unwavering trust that the results are going to come.
That's kind of goals versus systems, right? Where a goal is like win a major. A system is like, here's my process that I, as you stated, range, play 9 holes, whatever, come home, play another 9. Look at my score. Who is that real small golfer? He's like extremely analytical. He like tracks every single shot that he's ever taken. Yes, he's a little guy too. You root for him because he's like smaller than everybody else.
He's got a brother on the DP.
Yeah. I think he's a European guy, but he says that he's tracked every single shot that he's taken.
He's got all the notebooks
since he was like 13 or something crazy like that.
His name's Mats. Oh, it's gonna bug.
Yeah. But that's a guy, you talk about a process. You talk about someone who's dedicated to that process. And then he can actually put some data behind it. It's really a data game in almost every way, if you think about it. He can put some data behind that. Like, okay, I had a bad round today. What were my actions and behaviors previous to that? It's not assigned too much. But if it's a behavior that my scores are progressively getting higher, that might be an indication that something's going wrong. If they're progressively getting lower, then it might be an indication my training and system is working. And then you don't totally overhaul a system. You get that feedback and then you tweak it. It's like, okay, like I changed my shoes, my scores, over the next preceding 14 days were higher. This is bad. Like, okay, I tweak the system, but I don't throw everything out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the one low-hanging fruit, whether you're a golfer, a poker player, an entrepreneur, that so many miss out on too, is like they get so focused on like just their entrepreneurial endeavors, just their golf game. They forget at the end of the day, you can't sever the human being you are with the leader, the golfer, the poker player. Like the emotional challenges and hardships you have in the other parts of your life, they don't just not enter your golf game or your leadership, your business running. Like you can compartmentalize to some extent, but like the challenging, terrible fight you had with your significant other, your child in a dire situation is still going to impact you and wherever your purpose and passion are in life. And being able to diffuse those emotions, having, pre-round routines or your morning routine goes a long way in keeping a steady level of emotional control throughout the day.
Was it Scheffler that like ran into that police officer like before, and then did he win the tournament?
He did not win that tournament, but he birdied the first hole and then
Well, that's
and
pretty
shot
solid.
shot great.
That's a pretty solid guy. He spent like the night in jail or something.
He even said like his biggest mistake like the next day, like he like petered out a little bit. He's like, yeah, my sleep was thrown off and I just missed a meal or two, like because I was in jail. So he wasn't fueled.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's a guy who's pretty solid with it.
Yeah, he's stoic as can be.
So you've dealt with a lot of high performers, both golf, entrepreneurs, and poker, probably other activities too. I always like to ask this question: Is there a couple of things that you notice that sets these people apart that other people can think, okay, if I can add that into my arsenal of things, that's going to make me level up my game? Or is it totally individual and independent? Because sometimes you have a maniac who's great at one thing, terrible at another.
I think first and foremost, it's a willingness to ask for help. I'm a big believer asking for help accelerates results. So that translates into coachability most of the time. Not everybody's coachable, as we both know. But I think letting your guard down and seeing asking for help as a positive, as an accelerant or a catalyst to your growth, hands down separates the best of the best from those struggling to make it.
Do you think guys have a harder time with that?
Typically. I mean, I'm fortunate I work with some high achieving, like badass guys who just want to just maximize their potential. But I mean, I know myself for the longest time, I struggled to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people that I interact with are probably still at that stage where they think asking for help is maybe bad, or they don't necessarily believe that someone else out there has better answers than they do. Which I can understand that at some time. I've gotten tons of bad business advice from people, and I'm not that successful, but I'm a little bit. And now you kind of have to measure where you get your advice from, right? Like, is this legit? Is this? And there's been times where I've gotten advice, I've done the exact opposite thing, and it worked out way better than if I would have done it. So you're like, geez, well, where do I manage and handle that piece of information?
Yeah, so and I agree, and then you have to unpack like what was their past experience with coaches or asking for help.
Yeah,
like, I've had some shit once, and it's just like, it made me, but it makes you a little gun shy. You don't want to pull the trigger again. Like it was such a bad experience. Maybe I can figure it out all on my own. But in addition to like asking for help and being coachable, I think acknowledging that they are very clear on A, where they want to go, and B, where they are now, because that contrast allows or invites in so many opportunities for discussion as to what might be the bottleneck or the obstacle, which we've already identified as likely them for the most part. So that clarity is really important. Like no one's going to ask for help unless they're asking for help, like to get that clarity. You're not going to invest tens or however much money if you aren't even sure where you want to go. Like what is that investment for? So clarity on where you are versus where you want to go.
An identifiable result that you can get to at the end. I say that all the time with my clients. Your happiness is the gap between your expectations and reality. So we just want to know, like, what is your expectation for this thing? Because if you want to do $100,000 a month and we think you should be probably doing 10 and we do 15 grand, you're going to be upset. We're going to be ecstatic.
Yeah. So I always ask, like, what does success look and feel like in the next 6 months? Paint that picture for me. I want to know. Because my job too is I'm getting to know someone is like, can I even help you? Like I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me in a way. Because I want to make sure that like they're checking some of these boxes, like they're committed, they're coachable, they know where they want to go, and they recognize maybe not why they're not there, but they know they're the problem and they're open to exploring that.
And is your job in some way, shape, or form just putting guardrails up for people? That's what I feel like our job is at our business. Like we're just like saving you from yourself in so many ways. Like keeping you on track of that path that you're trying to walk down.
Yeah, it's minimizing and eventually reducing those sabotaging behaviors that keep them stuck in the hamster wheel of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Do you think those sabotaging behaviors are just innate, that we all sort of have them? Do you think they're learned through bad experiences over time? Or do you think that there's a third reason for those occurring over and over and over again?
So I've actually started to change my tune on self-sabotage as I picked this up, and I'm going to forget her name. So the book is called The Mountain Is You. Brianna something is the author, but she phrases it so beautifully that I like it. They're just safety protective behaviors because they're deployed by your subconscious. Your subconscious wants to keep you safe. That's all it is. So they are learned behaviors, and they were learned to help. Yeah, there he is. Is it Brianna Weist? Yeah, great book. So
It looks kind of like your logo there.
I know, right? Smart woman. But with that said, so they're deployed by your subconscious. They're designed to keep you safe. They're designed to help you survive. But as a high achiever, you want to thrive. And the reason you continue to remain stuck, you hit that upper limit, if you will, is there's an incongruency between what consciously you think is safe and acceptable versus what subconsciously you feel is safe and acceptable. And you're always going to default to your level of safety that's rooted in your subconscious. So that's where, the hypnosis is a fast, effective tool to go back in time and understand where this lack of safety or where this unfulfilled childhood need stems from, so you can meet the need or create the safety or give yourself permission to go be, do, and achieve these things you desire.
And the safety is only a perception of safety, right? Because if my alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and I know it's time to go to the gym, your subconscious goes, don't get out of bed. Don't do it. That's not the best thing for you overall. The forebrain is saying, get up, go do it. But in the background, your subconscious is like, no, you need sleep. You need to rest. It's going to be more comfortable to stay here. So essentially, it's just kind of like overriding that voice inside of your head, which at certain times we're great at overriding. At certain times we're really not good at.
Yeah, because think about I'm going to just simplify this example for sake of just the audience here. Like, let's say you go to the gym once a week inconsistently right now, and your goal is to start going 7 days per week. That's a complete identity change.
Yeah.
That is a huge mental, emotional, physical investment. Your subconscious, you're the blueprint of your identity is already created. Why are we going to change that? Your subconscious starts to freak the fuck out. Absolutely not. So this identity incongruency is really at the root. Like, we want to be somebody else. One of the most powerful questions I was ever taught to ask myself is like, who do you want to be, or who do you need to become to achieve the goal? Like, we can break down the numbers to buy a property, to buy a house, work out our product and services financial numbers and know what it takes to reach a financial goal. But like, who is the person investing in the multi-million-dollar home? Like, how does he talk to himself? What does he believe about himself, other people, life? That's a whole evolution. And our subconscious doesn't want to go through that. It's foreign, it's uncertain, it's unfamiliar, it's not safe.
Yeah, I've heard it said that maybe as a fitness example, but essentially once you become the person that identifies as the person who like can wake up at 6 a.m. and work out, like that does become your identity. Then there's like you want to be congruent with that identity, right? So you don't want to be telling everyone like, oh yeah, I keep a diet, I do all this stuff, but then you don't live up to that. So essentially now you've like reverse engineered it, that you're like, I am the person that does that. And that's like, not to say I am like the fittest or most attentive to my diet needs, but people know that it's important to me. So it's sort of self-reinforcing. It's like, hey, he's going to be in the gym after work. And it's like, oh, you're not going today? What's going on? So that, yeah, I think that hits on exactly what you're talking about, but it's kind of coming from the opposite way where you can convince yourself that is your identity to stick to things.
Yeah, and that's why like we broke down that like destructive mindset program before into all its constituent parts. Like, that awareness is so powerful because then you can dig deeper. Like, where did I learn these beliefs? Start challenging your beliefs. Like, one of my favorite books is The Code of the Extraordinary Mind by Vishen Lakhiani, and he calls them brules, like BRULES, these bullshit rules that like society has ingrained in our minds about how life is supposed to be, what we're supposed to do. So one of the most powerful things we can do is like question our beliefs, question our stories. And when you break down your destructive mindset programs and you start to write out like, oh, I do kind of believe it's not safe to do this, or I shouldn't do this. Like, where did that come from? And you can start to kind of go down the rabbit hole productively and unravel and learn like your mom and dad had a shit relationship with health, with food, with finances, and like it was impressed upon you, and your goal in life is to uncover all of the beliefs not serving you and to let them go.
I think I do a better job at that than some people of just not being so cognizant of how people are perceiving me like out in the world. Like, I'll give you just a really stupid example, but I will go to the airport and I'll just start stretching on the floor. And I did that with like my group of friends, and my one friend like took a picture of me and like sent it into the group chat. Like, Alex is being weird. And I'm just like, I'm allowed to stretch on the floor. And if you're not into that, then whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm never going to see any of these people at the airport again. No. And it's not going to affect their day. They might look over and be like, that's weird that I'm not doing any weird stretches or anything. I'm doing your normal stretches, your pancakes, your hamstring stretches, your warrior pose. I'm just doing it. And other people are like, it's interesting because you don't seem to care that that's like a socially odd behavior. And I'm just like, why would I care? Like, I don't know these people. I have nothing to prove to any of these people. It's right to me. I'm going to do it. If they have a problem with it, then that's fine. They're probably not going to say anything to me. So just live and let live. Like, I don't care. I'm doing it because it's right. But I don't know why I think I have that lack of desire to be socially consistent that maybe everyone else does. Not in every regards, but the microcosm of the way I think. Like, I don't need to prove anything to you out in public. I'll live my life. You live yours.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful example of authenticity and just so focused on you and your needs and your desires in the moment, nothing else matters. And a lot of people struggle with that.
I'm not doing anything too crazy. Like, I'm not like
you might be doing some downward dog and stuff. I don't know what you do.
Mostly like tight hip type stuff. No, but I'm not walking around like walking into grocery stores shoeless or anything like that. I think
not yet, at least.
I mean, I would. I know that you're supposed to be barefoot a lot, but I'm not ready for that. And I'm also not ready to wear the Vibram shoes with the toe shoes. Yep. We had Zechariah in here, and he calls himself the health king. And he's like, oh, yeah, I wear the toe shoes. I was like, dude, you're tougher than I am. Like, okay, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that yet. But, Paul, is there anything else that you think that we didn't cover? I know we talked a lot about mindset, golf, poker, a little bit about hypnotism, things that maybe you find as recurring themes in your discussions that is helpful for people.
The one that comes to mind, it's so powerful, it's literally tattooed on my arm.
I was going to ask you. I got that written down. I saw the tat you have.
Yeah, this quote, it's, you can't change unless you change. And what I mean and perceive that to be is like we all desire change in our life in some capacity. We want more of this, less of that, to improve here, less in there, whatever it may be. But all of that is external change that can't be achieved unless internal change takes place. And when I say internal change, it's the self-talk. It's the beliefs and stories. It's our emotional regulation. I was actually pondering this today. Like I was pondering it through the lens of writing a social media post. So it's a little polarizing and brash, but like the opening tagline was going to be like, I'm a spoiled brat. Because I live in a day and age, as do we all, where we can do whatever we want whenever we want. Yes, there's consequences, there's struggle, there's hardship, there's unexpected and expected challenges, but like we live in a day and age where we can make money on our laptop from anywhere in the world. Like it's such a gift and an opportunity, yet you can't experience all those desired changes unless the change starts within. And once you recognize that and take ownership, it's a fucking superpower. It's like dumping fuel on a fire.
I always heard it said, nothing changed, nothing changes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it, Paul, man. I really appreciate you, dude. This was so much fun. I'd love to have you back. I don't know if we said, but we're building a new facility down the road here.
Oh, right on.
We'd love to show it off, have you in there. I think we'll have a full studio. We'll have a setup, man. It'll be cool. We're really excited for it. But where can people find you, Paul?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Instagram, Paul Salter Coaching, best two places. Twitter as well, Paul Salter Coach for all my golfers out there. That's where I do a lot of my golf education and entertainment.
Cool, man. And your podcast that you...
Yeah, podcast. So the Scratch Golfer's Mindset and Get Unstuck Today.
Okay, sweet, brother. I appreciate you, man. This was fantastic.
Yeah, likewise, dude.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.